franchise to become the face of the franchise, as Rick Carlisle's continued to build this thing. You mentioned it, Ben Shepherd, Andrew Nimhart, Ben Matherin taking a seat as a sixth man coming off the bench.
Mm-hmm.
Could be a Jarris Walker. Could be a Thomas Bryant coming in. Now it's going to be Cam Jones. It's just a certain type of player that you know is going to come in, fit the mold, play the way that the Indiana Pacers play basketball, and I'm excited as hell about it.
And, like, there's no secret either. If you watch and go back to Shaka Smart's days at VCU, you know he puts his hat on the defensive end of the floor.
Mm-hmm.
So you know Cam Jones is going to be a stout defender, and this is the one area that I have a little concern with Cam Jones. He's on the smaller side for a guard. Like, he doesn't have much of a wingspan. Like, his wingspan is his height pretty much. He's got a 6'6" wingspan. He stands at 6'5". So I don't know, in terms of today's NBA, you like to switch everything on every pick and roll, and the Pacers like to switch too. That is the one concern that I have, but you're in the second round, you're the 38th pick. Everyone's going to have a little bit of something they have to critique. I think when you get into the second round, and our mutual friend Heston and I were talking about this last night, when you get into the second round, you're looking for a skill set or a specific skill that a player has, and you're trying to make that their role within the NBA, kind of like you see with Ben Shepherd, like the immediate role that he had of being able to be the guy that makes the hustle plays. He's going out there to defend. He understands his role within the system already, and I think
and can knock down a three.
Yes, yeah, that's the big thing.
Yeah.
That was the one thing Cam Jones struggled with last year, but I think in large part, when you look at his junior year when he was the off-ball guy, he was almost a 40% three-point shooter. And this past year, he dipped down to 32. So it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. But I think he'll be a nice, solid rotation player in his rookie year.
Right, exactly. I mean, you said it best. Like, when you're drafting a guy 38, heck, even when you're drafting a guy 26, where Ben Shepherd was drafted, you're not drafting him to come in here and play 35 minutes and be, heavy minutes for, the starting five or that rotation. You're drafting him to be able to come in 8-10 minutes, hit a shot, give a little jolt on defense, and like you mentioned, I mean, even if he's coming in with the second team, right? TJ McConnell's going to be running that, and he's going to be fine. So again, this isn't a pick that's going to be franchise changing when you look at it, but it's one that I think for me is more exciting because it's a Pacers type of player, and that means something to have an identity and a culture that the Pacers now have.
When we were talking about this yesterday, Mark Dykes and I, we were talking about just what to expect and who we were wanting to see the Pacers take. And both he and I kind of fell on Ryan Kalkbrenner just because of the need of another modern center behind Miles Turner. Because right now the Pacers have a team option with Tony Bradley. Outside of that, they have no other centers on the roster. They elect to go with two guards, Talon Peter, the other selection they make with the 54th overall pick. And I think it's a fascinating pick. It's nothing it could be a home run if the Pacers develop him right in the G League. I would assume that he's going to start in the G League and be on a two-way, but primarily play in the G League. And they'll give Johnny Furphy more minutes this year because, as Jake's noted on the show, the Pacers are really high on Johnny Furphy. And based off the stuff that I've seen from Talon Peter, he was one of the best shooters in terms of true shooting percentage last year. Almost 76% on two-point shots. Like, that's unheard of. So that'll be interesting. But to go back to the center part of this, now things are shaping up to where it looks like, and we already knew this, that Miles Turner is going to be back. It's going to be a matter of A, how much, and then B, who do you get behind him? Is it Isaiah Jackson? Do you bring him back on a minimum contract, or is there somebody else that you go to?
No, James Wiseman too, right? Yeah. I mean, it's somebody to look into. I know Coach Carlisle was on with the guys earlier in the week, and he mentioned that Wiseman's agent came up, said he just did a 360 dunk or in between the legs dunk or something like that. So the agent talk or whatnot, but like you'd be glad that the rehab's going that well for the big guy, So options to be made. But you mentioned the 72. What is it? 76 or 72%?
I don't know. I thought it was like close to 76%. It was something ridiculous.
But those kind of like unteachable skills, right? And those little niche skills that you have to find in somebody at that level when you're drafting them at that point. Hey, can you knock down shots? Hey, can you jump out of the gym? Hey, can you defend? It's like, you can teach a guy to throw a slider or a curveball. You can't teach him to throw 101 miles an hour.
No,
right?
No, you can't do that. 75.6 on 2-point shots.
Yeah, you roll a dice on that one, right? You roll a dice on that one.
Right. Yeah. And like, he has an interesting background. He starts at Arkansas Tech, and he finishes at Liberty. He spends a couple of years in Division II. So like, he's bounced around. He's kind of like that, just another one of those guys that gets overlooked, and hopefully he can turn into something. But it's always, you expect nothing, but if you get anything, it's fantastic out of these late second-round picks.
No doubt. What do we got coming up today, Eddie?
It's a busy show. At 12:30, Jeremiah Johnson will join us. We'll talk a little Pacers, more about the draft. And you and I were talking about this before the show. I talked a little bit with Mark Dykton yesterday on the show just about the most memorable moment from this past year for the Indiana Pacers during this miraculous and somewhat miraculous is a good word to put it, but this entire playoff run to the NBA Finals. Zack Kefir will join us at 1 o'clock. He covered the finals run for the Pacers for The Athletic. Talk Colts as well, a little bit national NFL. Bria Goss, the Fever Radio Network analyst, will join us at 1:30. A tough loss last night for them. And then at 2 o'clock, Jack Harvey, the halfway point of the IndyCar season. So it'll be interesting to see what Jack has to say about the season so far. And I'm interested to hear from Jack in this respect of like the difference from the non-hybrid to the hybrid, because he's obviously been in both, and not too often do we get the chance to ask drivers about it.
For sure. You got that. You got, is there ever going to get a new car? Is IndyCar ever going to have a new car?
Yeah.
Is there ever going to be another manufacturer that's coming in? You saw Toyota just signed on with the Arlington GP for next year to be like a presenting sponsor, but then said they are not close or don't have any interest in being another manufacturer in the series. So get his thoughts on that. Obviously the halfway point of the IndyCar season, Mid-Ohio coming up next weekend. Have you ever been out? Besides the Indy 500, have you ever been to any IndyCar races?
I haven't.
Man, Mid-Ohio is one of my favorites. It's always 4th of July weekend. It's an absolute blast. People camping out everywhere in the woods right there. It's a real fun road course that you got out there at Mid-Ohio. About, I'd say about an hour and a half north of Cleveland. Or not Cleveland, Columbus, excuse me. Hour and a half north of Cleveland would put you in a lake. Hour and a half north of Columbus is right about where Mid-Ohio is. But it's a great weekend. Kicks off the second half. And then July, I mean, my God, they don't stop. Once we get going here with Mid-Ohio, you got doubleheader Iowa. You got Milwaukee coming up later. You got Toronto. It just doesn't stop. So ton to talk about with Jack Harvey there. Can Kyle Kirkwood catch Alex Palou? Kyle Kirkwood got his first win on an oval right after Alex Palou got his first win on an oval in the Indy 500. So he's creeping up on him. Pato right there. Second. Yeah, but I mean, Kirkwood has just really been on fire lately. And so obviously it's been driven by Palou and Kirkwood both, with other guys being close. But a lot to talk about in the IndyCar front as the second half gets started up there. And then JJ, I got to ask him about his suit. His little navy blue or baby blue suit that he's always rocking.
Oh, yes.
JJ's got that, man. It could be 105 degrees out at Gamebridge, and he's out there laying out shirts with the suit on. So I got to ask him about that, but plenty to talk about. And I wanted to get your opinion, Eddie. Okay. And if YouTube, or if you want to call in 317-239-1070, I've always wanted to say that.
There you go.
So
you can check it off the box.
239, 1070. Give us a call. But maybe not the most memorable. But when I think about it, this run for the Pacers, because I'm honestly still in mourning. It's just been a really hard week for everybody, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Myself included, with the way that it ended. But I think more so it's just because you didn't want it to end, because of how fun, how special it was. And so I was thinking about it, and I was thinking to myself, what is going to be the moment in 10 years when I'm at a bar with some buddies, or I'm at a campfire, or I'm talking to my son, who will be almost 11 years old at the time. What's the first moment that I'm going to be pulling up on YouTube, that I'm going to be talking about, that I'm going to be reminiscing on and telling the legendary story of, because there were so many on this run, and I want to know yours. And I want to know the listeners as well. What's the first one? Maybe not the best one. Maybe not the one that was most important to the franchise, but that one that you're going to go back to right off the bat.
There's two, and I can't. It's like splitting hairs when you have to like weigh all the different options that you have with this entire, run of all the different shots that Tyrese Halliburton hits. Like, the first one I think of is just the improbable one of the Madison Square Garden shot to force overtime in the Garden. Like, how many other times is that shot going to go in? How many other times are you going to see the ball go off the back of the rim like that, go straight up, and then come straight down? Especially going as high as it did, it almost it went as high as the shot clock.
Yeah,
like, you never see that happen. And it was on, this obviously it was on the same day, and unfortunately, the passing of Jim Irsay. So like, that's the one I think will stick with me the most, just because you had everything during the day of not really celebrating, but remembering Jim Irsay and the life that he brought to the city of Indianapolis with the Colts. And then you have Tyrese Halliburton and the Pacers completing that comeback. Aaron Nesmith, making 3 after 3 after 3 and just going absolutely ballistic in the fourth quarter. And then obviously you have the Tyrese shot. What about you?
Yeah, that's got to be it. I don't know if it's just because I'm a 90s kid. I was born in 93. So I was a baby, and I grew up on the stories from my dad and my mom and my uncles and people around my life that I grew up on those stories of Reggie in the Garden. And I vaguely remember as a little kid, and my profile picture right now is me in my Reggie jersey. I had the Band-Aid over the eye like he did back in the day because I wanted to be just like him, and the black Nikes. But I think because it was in New York, it was in the Garden, it was against the Knicks. Yes, it wasn't in the finals like he did in Game 1 and hit the game winner there. It wasn't as dramatic necessarily as that 40-second comeback at home against the Bucks. But, man, anytime, as someone who grew up in those times, someone who's raised on those Reggie Miller days, anytime that you can beat New York in that fashion, and I know it wasn't a game winner. I know it was the 2. My God, how I wish it would have been. His toe would have been just a little bit further back, and the full choke could have had the full impact. But, man.
We're in 11-7, 11.5 that day.
Right. Just that is always going to be the one because, like you mentioned, the comeback itself, when you're down, what were they down? 14, 15 with 3 minutes to go. And, I mean, I go back and watch that, and they were down 8 with 46 seconds to go. And it's insane that they did it against Milwaukee. They did it against Cleveland. So, of course, they're going to do it against New York. But, again, it just felt so much more gravitas being on that stage with Ben Stiller and Larry David and Timothy Chalamet and all the old Knicks that we still can't stand sitting there as well, and just having the life being sucked out of that place. That's always going to be number one.
And then the other one that I thought of, it's not even one of the playoff games. It was the 4-point play against Milwaukee in the regular season.
Yep.
Like how you've got the Hail Mary play that Jenny Busick draws up, and I've seen him do it time and time again, like last year, and they hadn't really pulled it out of it was like pulling a rabbit out of the hat almost in the regular season. They were able to execute. Tyrese hits the improbable shot there, and he, of course, goes to the line and makes the 4-point play to complete it to defeat the Bucks. And that was kind of like the start of the entire, run that they made of these improbable comebacks. And you've got the one in Minnesota when you've got no starters out there. Andrew Nembhard gets ejected. Obi Toppin goes for like 20 points in overtime, and the Pacers pull out a win against a very healthy Minnesota team on the road. Those were 2 games that people forget about, but those are the 2 that you have to go back to remember how this entire run and how they started embodying this willingness to come back and this willingness to never stop competing and kind of embracing it and then running with it into the postseason.
We got anybody in YouTube? What do we got? Anybody in there sharing their number one, what they're going to?
So Dominic in the company break room via YouTube says it's actually not even a moment during a game. Dominic said that his is the national anthem of Game 4. He went with his brother, and all they could think about was playing hoops in this state as a kid.
Was that the saxophone one? I think that was the saxophone.
I think so.
Yeah, I was in the building for that. That was the saxophone one because Game 3 was the fella from the band. I don't remember the band. Game 3, yeah, we kind of walked away from that one like, I guess, let's refocus in here. But Game 4, when they brought the saxophone out, yeah, that was nice.
You can never go wrong with a good saxophone player.
When you rip it, especially in a moment like that, in a finals game, or if you come out in the World Series, or if it's a Super Bowl and you got it, then absolutely. Can't go wrong with the sax.
And then Roy says the putback dunk by Neesmith over Jalen Brunson.
Man. Neesmith had so many of those.
He had 2. I know 2 of them off the top of my head. He had one in Oklahoma City. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I forgot about Cleveland. Yeah.
It was that Cleveland one that should have been an and one. That kind of jump-started that comeback.
Mm-hmm.
You remember? Because they were at the line, and you're sitting there thinking, okay, if everything breaks the right way, yes. And then he comes in, slams that back, and then the possession right after that is where he drew the foul on Donovan Mitchell.
Yes.
Remember the one that should have been a flagrant, and they said no somehow. He elbows him in the face. Somehow Mitchell doesn't get that call against him. But then they got the possession right after that, and then you start thinking, I think this is going to happen again. Regardless, keep chiming in. I mean, I'd love that to be a topic throughout today, just because, like I said, for me, still in mourning a little bit, but it's a mourning of now I'm to the point where I'm just grateful that it happened. I'm looking back on all those memories and all the times that we had and these times that we'll be able to forever talk about these stories and sit around and chop it up about what an incredible run it was for the 24-25 Indiana Pacers.
It's kind of wild to think about it this way. We were just talking about the Cleveland series, and like that's the one series I always forget about. I remember the Milwaukee series. I remember the New York series.
Really? Because Milwaukee, for me, I mean, that was just like, I won because it was so long ago, but that really skin off the top for me. But Cleveland, with the dominant performance they had in game 1, the comeback in game 2, and then game 4, you come up and you score 83 points in the first half.
That's the one I forget about the most, is that 83-point first half.
You're on the board for these.
I know. That's why it's bad.
Mark Boyle's calling. He's losing his mind. How do you forget that?
I don't know. Like, there's just so many things that happened during the course of the entire playoff run. Like, that's the one series I forget.
Well, you know what's wild to think about, too, is kind of forgetting, like I said, how good they were in game 1 in Cleveland. How good they were in game 2 in New York.
When the Cubs won the World Series, do you remember every series leading up to the World Series with defeated Cleveland?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know if there was one that you forget like the most or whatever, or like the least memorable, I should say.
No. You don't forget anything like that, man.
I guess so.
But the NBA playoff, I mean, it's different for Major League Baseball as compared to the NBA because that's a whole season in itself.
Yes.
The playoff. When you go all the way to the final, I mean, that's a 3-month run right there.
Oh, yeah.
Unbelievable. All right. Jeremiah Johnson, Pacers TV, Pacers sideline reporter, going to be joining us. We're going to recap the run that was, maybe get his thoughts on his number one moment that he'll come back to years from now for the 25 Indiana Pacers. And also a look ahead at the draft picks from last night and what's going to be of the 2025-2026 Indiana Pacers, and I'll ask him about that light blue jacket as well. It's Query and Company, Joey Mulinaro and Eddie Garrison, and on a Friday on 107.5 The Fan. Sideline reporters with us. Jeremiah, thanks for being here, man. Pleasure to talk to you as always. And we got to know about the light blue suit that you've been rocking. Really, all of them. Are you self-dressed, or is that a Mrs. Johnson thing?
Oh, self-dressed. Come on, Joey. Now I do get some help, and actually, I think the one that you were commenting on, I don't even know if she would necessarily have signed up for acknowledging that she was picking that one. That one was. It's a little more derby style, and I know what you know about big horse racing events, but I feel like it also fit during the summer Pacers games. It's not always appropriate in December and winter, but it's a summer suit.
Okay, yeah. So I was going to say you have your summer palette, your winter palette. That doesn't come out until what, April?
Well, that's true. And then you do have some road trips where you play a game in Phoenix or you've got a game in Los Angeles, and you can still manage to pull those off in that time of the year. So you got to be cognizant of what the weather is when you decide what kind of suit you put on for a game.
I hear you. You are absolutely killing it, man. Jeremiah Johnson, our guest right now. And JJ, we were talking about here in the first segment, Eddie and I, as we're in this kind of morning reminiscing portion of after this Pacers playoff run already, talking about the moment that you'll go back to, let's say 10 years from now, or that you and your boys will talk about on family vacation when you're out just hanging around by the bonfire, if you will. What is that moment from this run that is going to be the first one that comes to mind for you?
Gosh, there are so many. You have to zero in on the playoffs, and I guess I probably would initially say Game 5 against the Bucks, because in some ways that sort of started the playoff run, and also, that was potentially the last playoff game, that I'll broadcast, because at this point for next year, all of the playoff games become national exclusives. So if that was the last ever, game broadcast that I work on during the playoffs, it was sure a good one, because I can remember vividly putting my recommendation in for who I'd like to talk to for the walk-off interview, and then walking towards the aisle thinking, is this really even going to happen? And I think I was about at some point behind the bench when Tyrese Halliburton was able to cap that comeback off, and then all of the pandemonium that then ensued on the court. So I probably would go with that one, but there are a number of if that's 1A, I probably got 10 1Bs that I could give you.
My 1B, JJ, was that 4-point play by Tyrese in the regular season against Milwaukee, because I felt like that was what the moment that really started all these miraculous comebacks and the attitude kind of shift just ever so slightly at the Pacers in their belief that they're never out of a game and that they can come back from no matter what the deficit is.
Yeah, and Eddie, and that actually started the stretch of what I would say the resilient Pacers, because that was when they won that game. The next time they lost 2 straight games were 4 and 5 in the finals. They always were able to, if they lost the game, win the next game. And they, I think, had come home after a little bit of a tough, frustrating road trip, but also one that Tyrese Halliburton was injured during. And you come back and you play a national TV game, and again, you saw the genius of the coaching staff in coming up with that play, and then you saw the clutch from Tyrese Halliburton. And again, a lot of what he did in that night and then on into the playoffs, we've really seen ever since he was acquired by the Pacers. He has that knack of wanting the ball in the clutch situations, and I always think when he shoots a crucial shot, it's going to go in. But he did it then on national TV, and then he did it throughout the playoffs, and it was that was a memorable play for sure as well.
Jeremiah Johnson, our guest, Pacers sideline reporter, host. JJ, you've been in the building obviously this week. I saw that you and Eddie White and Chris and Pat, everybody, Mark Boyle were over there hosting some sort of fan event yesterday, I believe. Obviously a somber kind of tone after what happened on Sunday night in Oklahoma City, but I guess just is there what's the vibe over there right now? What's the vibe for the employees, the staff, just in the building right now as we now move on to the draft, free agency, and 25-26?
There is always going to be just a little bit of disappointment, and this is one that's maybe going to take a little longer to get over. But the overwhelming feeling is both satisfaction and gratification. And I was there Tuesday for an informal staff gathering, and then Wednesday night for the draft party with some season ticket holders. And it was a draft party unlike any that I'd ever experienced, because no one was really talking about who the Pacers might draft. They were just kind of looking back on the season that was and the ride that this team took its fan base on. And even talking to some, younger employees, it felt like Monday everyone just needed to get away, to catch their breath, and be sad for a little bit. Let's be perfectly honest. Monday was a rough day, and even into Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
Now that you're towards the end of the week and you're thinking about new players, and I heard the start of your show when you were kind of breaking down, the second round draft picks, and it won't be too long until you're watching a summer league game in Las Vegas. And honestly, such a short off season, it won't be too long until it's media day and training camp. And so you can turn the page, but you'll never kind of get over, I feel like, the disappointment of how everything went down on Sunday, and you'll constantly be monitoring and thinking about Tyrese Halliburton, what he has to go through. So it's certainly an unusual feeling, and I've made this comparison a few times on different outlets. Covering those Butler teams in 2010 and 2011, while I was not a part of the team like I am right now, I got pretty close to them. And both of those teams, to get so close, you still marveled and you appreciated the run that they went on, especially to do it a second straight year. But you had this little pit in your stomach because you couldn't close it out. And what I would say, and what I've told other people, is it'll make it that much sweeter when you are able to win that last game.
Pacers television sideline reporter Jeremiah Johnson joining us, and you were just talking about the draft party and how fans weren't really focusing on the draft and what the Pacers could do or what they will do. But now that we do have the answers, were there any questions that you had going into the draft that were answered after their two selections last night?
It's hard to say with a couple of second-round picks because you don't necessarily know what the objective is for those guys. A higher second-round pick, you would think, is potentially going to take one of those 15 roster spots. The other one maybe more of a two-way type of player. I, like you guys, was a little bit interested to see if there would be a backup center that was added, or a developmental type of big man. So maybe that's a positive sign for a guy like Enrique Freeman, who while center forward, he's more of a front court player, and maybe they see more potential in him. But you just want guys that fit, and it does seem like in what you've seen and heard about those two guys that they will fit with this organization. Cam Jones seems like someone that could not be more excited about being with the Pacers, and you like the skill set that he has and experience that he has in college. He seems like he can fit right in and basically contribute next year, where there will be some playing time available in the backcourt. So I wouldn't say that I'd make too many big conclusions. Maybe the biggest thing would be talk to me about 10 days from now, whether once free agency concludes and any potential trades, do they make any additional move for a veteran in the backcourt? And if they do, is it the kind of veteran that is more of a backup, or is it someone that expects to start? And then that would answer a lot of the questions about what your projected starting lineup would be and what your backcourt. It seems like you'll give a great opportunity to Benedict Mathurin to play alongside Adrian Nembhard. But anything's on the table. Rick Carlisle likes to say all the cards are on the table, and we won't really know for another couple of weeks.
Who could that potentially be? Is there anybody out there that we could look at that, just some names that you have possibly that potentially could be in terms of a trade or a free agent splash signing, if you will, over the next handful of weeks?
Yeah, I guess if it was a splash, to me it wouldn't be of the free agent variety. It would be of the trade, and that's where it's tough. Guys are already under contract with other teams, so I wouldn't necessarily want to throw those names out there. But we do know in the Pacers' past, when they make a trade, sometimes it's a trade you've not heard about in social media circles or on NBA Twitter. It's one that's kind of kept under the radar a little bit. So to me, the biggest splash would be is if you did decide you wanted to go make a move for someone that wasn't just, a one-year player that could help you for a few years, that could help you without, the year that Tyrese Halliburton's not there, and then also be a part of your rotation moving forward. That would qualify as a splash. I'm almost expecting more of a veteran type of addition that can bring some stability and, potential playing time, but maybe nothing promised. And that would maybe be, the free agent variety, although, free agency around the league, not a lot of teams have a lot of cap space. And, a guy like Tony East is able to answer a lot of those questions more. So sorry not to give you, Joey, a great specific name for that, but I will be paying attention over the next week. And I do think that I wouldn't rule anything out. So we'll just have to see. We'll know a lot about their direction and their plans in the next couple of weeks.
Jeremiah Johnson joins us on the Ryan Geist Brewery guest line. Eddie Garrison, Julie Mulinaro filling in for Jake Quarry on Quarry and Company on The Fan. I mentioned this player yesterday, JJ, when I was talking with Tony East, and we're just talking about point guards and the additional, ball handlers that Rick Carlisle likes to play with. A guy who had moments this year. He started 7 games, only played in 28, kind of bounced back and forth between the Pacers and the G League, was Quentin Jackson. And I thought in the minutes that he did get during the course of the regular season, he was very productive and he flashed the ability to be a role player in the NBA. Do you think they will give him a lot of opportunities this upcoming season if they want to go to the route of trying to develop guys like Jackson, Walker, Furphy, and Mathurin?
His versatility is a plus. He can handle the ball, but probably is best suited to be off the ball. His energy is obvious. He's one of those guys that you put in the game and he's going to almost give you that TJ McConnell kind of effort for however long he is out there. So that is one of the question marks. If you bring in 2 guards and then you bring in someone else, you start to look at how many guards you have available and how many you fit in to the roster. I know that the kind of player he is and the energy that he provides, it fits the Pacers ecosystem. And every interaction I've had with Quentin Jackson has been positive. I even got to call one of the G League playoff game at Gainbridge Fieldhouse with John Nolan, and he was a big factor in them winning that game, and was the Mad Ants' first playoff win since 2017, I believe. So he's meant a lot to the franchise in a short time. No one has a bad thing to say about him, and you'll get an endless amount of energy if you play him. We'll just have to wait and see if once you have all the players together, whether he's one of those guys to play or not. Kind of hard to say right now. Well, it's a tough one, but you'd like to have a guy like that as an option.
Jeremiah Johnson with us. JJ, I remember way back now when Danny Granger went down with an injury, and he was going to be out for an extended period of time, and then young Paul George was one to step in and really kind of was able to blossom without Danny Granger being out there. Now, 25-26, would you say that that's more likely to happen for an Andrew Nembhard or Benedict Mathurin without Tyrese Halliburton being on the floor?
How about I say, even though it's a different position, I might even go the direction of Jarris Walker. I mean, we kind of know what Benedict Mathurin is and what he can be, and what he has to do is just be a little more consistent and, fit into the Pacers style just a little bit better. But as I look to next season, I know, again, it's not directly Tyrese Halliburton's minutes are going to go to Jarris Walker, but it sure seems like he's going to get that opportunity. And he's actually more, of a fit to the Paul George type of player. That's what you'd love him if he could turn into. And so looking into next season, I'm as excited and interested to see if he can take that next leap next season about Jarris Walker as anybody. So we went into this past season mentioning Benedict Mathurin and Jarris Walker as 2 guys that had a chance to raise your ceiling. What ended up happening was that 10-man rotation, that 11-man rotation, that was everyone playing better was the reason the Pacers were able to raise their ceiling. But individually, Mathurin and Walker are still the 2 guys that where you drafted them, there's a reason why you're a lottery pick. And where Jarris Walker is age-wise, you have to remember he's still young, a lot younger than some of the guys that are just drafted or the guys that maybe even were drafted last year. So I really hope it was unfortunate that he could not get any finals minutes just to get that experience and, up and down minutes wise this season, but year 3 feels like a big one to me for Jarris Walker.
I guess I should have put it this way, and that's I'd love to think about Jarris Walker taking that jump, and I'm glad you pivoted there. But in terms of just simply because Tyrese Halliburton with Andrew Nembhard, he's already a starter, we know that. But then stepping in to really having his role grow even more as now probably going to be the starting point guard without Tyrese. Is there a jump from Andrew Nembhard from being a starting good level player in the NBA to now all of a sudden we see him, holy cow, Andrew Nembhard's an all-star?
Yeah, and actually a lot of that to me will be determined on if they do bring someone else in. I think that Andrew Nembhard can be a number 1 point guard on a really good team. Now, the Pacers have Tyrese Halliburton for the future. So, there have been times in the last couple of years I thought at some point Andrew Nembhard might need his own team. But then even this season, I started thinking, okay, he can be a really good point guard, but what does he do as well as anyone? He's a defensive stopper. And you can't maybe be the guy with the ball in his hands all the time and then also guard the best player in the backcourt. So that'll be something to watch, because you still need him at the point of attack. You likely need him to guard the other team's best guards. And if you're doing that, then do you want him to also handle the ball the whole time? And that's where Benedict Mathurin could provide some additional, maybe point guard responsibilities. I mean, I still think of Mathurin as truly a 2 or a 3. So, I mean, the biggest player, you're very accurate in saying, going into next season has to be Andrew Nembhard. I'll just be interested to see. You can only ask so much of the guys. You can't say you need to be our best offensive player, point guard, distributor, score when we need you, and we also need you to at times guard the other team's best player inline to inline. And that's why I think, there were times in the finals when he's guarding Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, maybe you didn't go full court all the time. It was to throw a different look at the Thunder, but it was also to make sure that Nembhard didn't run out of gas on the offensive end as well. So talk about hitting as a second-round draft pick. He might go down as one of the best second-round draft picks ever, and definitely in franchise history.
Jeremiah Johnson of FanDuel Sports Network joining us on the Ryan Geis Brewery guest line. In conclusion here, JJ, for me, when you look at the insertion of assuming Benedict Mathurin to the starting lineup, the one knock I guess you can say on Mathurin thus far into his NBA career is just the fact that he likes to prefer to play ISO basketball and break his defenders down and evaluate the court more in terms of the half-court variety. With that in mind, do you think the Pacers try to play a little bit slower this upcoming year instead of the up-tempo, push the ball up the court, and play the fast way in which they want to play when Tyrese Halliburton was out there?
You have some versatility and you have some options, but I wouldn't go into next season saying you're going to slow down to make the game more suited to Benedict Mathurin. You still have a style that kind of Pacers basketball is right now, a fast-paced, unselfish style, and you'd rather take advantage in those situations when the game slows down, because it does happen at all times. Take advantage of Benedict Mathurin's skills, but see him adjust even more to the way that the Pacers play. I can't for a second think that you go into next season saying everything that you did well, everything you're known for, a big reason you got to the finals was you played fast, and now without Tyrese Halliburton, you're just going to try to go play slow. I just can't see that happening. So I think they'll try to continue to play the way they've played, have everyone fit in, and use this as a year to determine if let's say Mathurin and Walker, can they be those kind of players for you? And if not, it doesn't mean they're not going to be great NBA players, but this is Pacers basketball, and there's a reason the Pacers got to the finals into a Game 7, and it's by playing fast.
All right, Jeremiah Johnson. Last one for me, JJ. A week from right now, Independence Day. You will be where?
I will actually be flying back from California. I'm going to get a little vacation in next week, and I'm going on a cruise. And I have done this before where I actually travel on the 4th of July, because I figure that day the airports are just a little less busy. So I'll hope that none of the fireworks hit my plane as I'm landing, because I don't think I'm going to get into town or to the airport until about 10 o'clock.
You may be able to get more fancy suits when you're out there on vacation in California.
Yeah. That's true. So you should have quite the view, but what's going on your 4th of July plate? If you were at a barbecue, what does the 4th of July plate look like for Jeremiah Johnson?
Ribs and brisket would probably be my two choices. I watched the hot dog eating contest, but I never want to eat the hot dogs after watching something like that. So I was glad to see that our local legend, talk about local legends named Joey Chestnut and Joey Mulinaro.
Yeah.
I was glad to see that Joey, even though he made a splash on Netflix, probably made a lot of money, he's going to be back on Nathan's 4th of July hot dog eating contest. And so I hope that I'll be able to catch that before I get on the plane on the West Coast next week.
All's right in the world with Joey back out there. JJ, appreciate the time, man, as always. Safe travels. Have a blast next week, and we'll talk at you soon.
All right. Appreciate you guys.
That's Jeremiah Johnson. You know him. You love him. Pacers sideline reporter. Always doing a great job with us, and appreciate his insights, Eddie.
Yeah, he gave you an answer on the suit, too.
Yeah.
Was that enough?
Yeah. I figured. He does have a little bit of that Derby-esque to him, a little bit of Craig Sager Rest in peace.
Oh
to,
yeah,
to the
good call.
man.
Nice pull.
So yeah, we grew up with that, and now all the little ones around here will grow up with JJ and his Great Gatsby suits.
Do you have Do you have a blue suit like that?
I have a green suit.
Okay.
I have a lime green suit that I wore to the Kentucky Derby in 2024. Actually, the Derby landed on May the 4th, and I wore a Star Wars tie on May 4th at the Kentucky Derby. Was a smashing hit.
Now, can you wear that suit any other day, like to a fancy dinner or anything like that? Or is it just going to be for a Derby?
I believe that you can pull off anything that you believe you can pull off.
Okay.
So it's like fake it till you make it. Walk in there like you own the place. If you got a lime green suit on with a fedora, some people might have thoughts, but if you're rocking it, if you're feeling it, you can.
Today, Joey, the F1 movie was released. Brad Pitt starring in it. He had an interesting comment about Indy. I'll play that for you, let you react, and we'll discuss that next on Query & Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. Jake Query. You know what they'll be bringing out eventually here in a couple of weeks to Indianapolis will be the All-Star game, the WNBA All-Star game. Eddie White texting me as we were talking with Jeremiah Johnson, said he was listening to the show up in Muncie because they're doing a scavenger hunt. If you're interested in winning a pair of tickets to the WNBA All-Star game, you can go to allstarhunt2025.com. And not to mention, Joey, I don't know about you, I always enjoy a good scavenger hunt.
Sure, why not? I got the kids, just throw them out there in the backyard, go find these things, and it takes up, 20 minutes or so.
Is that what you do with Easter eggs? Is that what you did for Easter?
Yeah. Just put them in the gutter, put them in the bushes, right behind the tire. That's good. Just stay away from the street, obviously. But yeah, toss things out there and just let them have it until their attention span comes to an end, which is pretty quick.
Our attention spans aren't much longer either.
No, they're not. You mentioned Brad Pitt, though. Brad Pitt having some interesting comments, some good comments, I think, about the IndyCar series. And we got Jack Harvey coming up at 2. You'll hear more about that after the break. Zack Kefir next on The Fan.
I'm Eddie Garrison, Julie Mulinaro, also here filling in for Jake Query on Query and Company. Nathaniel Finch producing the program today. Hopefully you're having a great Friday, and hopefully you're staying inside and cool and hydrating if you do plan on going outside, if that's, going to a baseball game, doing any, yard work or anything like that. Joey has made it hot and steamy in the studio with this cluster truck lunch because, as you know, Joey, as a listener to the show, Nathaniel does as well. We get cluster truck, Jake and I do every Tuesday, and the one thing I haven't had is their salmon, and I cannot stop thinking about it because it looks great.
Yeah, I'm on the J&V train here, man. The Korean barbecue salmon from Cluster Truck. It is my go-to, especially during the weeks when I'm trying to eat clean. It is nice.
The Rye Guys Brewery guest line has already been busy with Jeremiah Johnson. We go back there now. Zack Kefir of The Athletic joining us. Zach, good afternoon. How are you?
I'm good. I'm honestly a little hungry after you guys what you guys were just discussing.
I know. I'm hungry too, and I'm just looking at it and only getting the scent of it. I haven't had any tastings of it.
It's a bummer.
Zach, you covered the Pacers for The Athletic during the playoff run. Let's start there, and then we'll get into the NFL and the Colts. Overall, your takeaways of what the Pacers did?
Yeah, I mean, how much time do you have, right? What a run. It was really fun for me. I mean, I'm a Hoosier by birth, right? So I've been watching this team for 30, 35 years, and I hadn't covered the team since the Paul George, Roy Hibbert days. So it was like the first time I'd really covered the team in 10 years. It was an absolute blast. And I hate that I wrote after game 4 that fourth quarter might haunt this franchise forever. I hate that I'm right about that, but that's kind of the lingering thought I have in my head is they just had that 3-1 lead. They were like 4 or 5 minutes away. And I think they win the series if that happens. I also think they win the series if Tyrese Halliburton doesn't go down in the first quarter of Game 7. I wrote that after Game 6. So, the vibe in the city, and I'm sure you guys will echo this, and I'm sure everybody out there listening will echo this, is, from Monday morning on, everybody I've talked to around the city, at my kids' daycare drop-offs, at the gym, at the pool, everybody is just in this state of what if. And it just stinks for this franchise because it was such a ridiculously fun playoff run.
Zack Kefir with us. Zach, we've been asking each other. We asked Jeremiah Johnson before as well. The moment that you're going to come back to, you personally, that you're going to come back to, the first one's going to come to mind 10 years from now when you're out at a bar, getting back together with old buddies, or you're just reminiscing with people on the family trip, let's say, and you're talking about, man, that Pacers run in 25. What's going to be the first one that comes to mind that you talk about for you?
Yeah, good question. I heard Eddie's answer earlier, and I can't disagree. The shot at Madison Square Garden in Game 1, right? That was probably the most surreal moment. That's not it for me. That was the same night Jim Irsay passed, so I was essentially working alone in my office, not able to watch the Pacers live. So my answer for you is going to be Game 1 of the finals. Reality, that's a game they had no business winning. They were dead in the water. They turned it over a billion times, and they just found a way, and it kind of spoke to how fun and cool and resilient and gritty that team was. And Halliburton's game winner, no timeout. There was no time to really prepare. Could you just imagine the Oklahoma City fans walking home after that game thinking they did it to us? And that was really the game that told me this series was going to be a series. That's when it changed in my mind. This team ain't happy to be here. They're good enough to win this. And I still believe they were good enough to win the whole thing.
When you look at it from this perspective, Zach, you've been around journalism and covering things for a very long time. Have you seen anything or been a part of anything like the playoff run for the Pacers?
That's a really good question too. I don't want to compare it to the Colts runs of the mid 2000s because that team was absolutely stacked with Hall of Famers. This doesn't feel like that. It does feel a little bit like those Butler runs, right? One that came up short, agonizingly short, and they were just so dang likable, right? I mean, there's so many things to like about this Pacers team. They picked up their defense this year. They're incredibly unselfish. Their superstar is a pass-first point guard with this weird shot, right? It's too skinny, right? Does that sound familiar, right? Remember my watching this team as a kid, right? Rooting for Reggie Miller. I always thought if that dude played for another team, I would absolutely hate him. But I loved Reggie Miller because he played for my team. And I imagine there's people around the NBA who don't like Tyrese Halliburton, though I don't know why, because he's all team and he's just likable. And so it did remind me a little bit of that Butler run. The Pacers were just so good in crunch time in so many games, and that Butler team under Brad Stevens was as well.
Zack Kefir with us. Zach, next 4 years, can this team get back?
Yeah, absolutely.
Back to the finals.
Yeah, they can win it. I believe that. They've got some tough decisions, but I think you look at the two teams in town, right? The two professional teams, and I don't mean the Fever. I mean the Pacers and the Colts. Like, is the structure in place, right? The Pacers have such a good front office and what Kevin Pritchard and Chad Buchanan are doing. They have a superstar who wants to be here. Now, that's different, right, than the past two. Paul George wanted out. Eventually, Victor Oladipo wanted out. Tyrese Halliburton wrote the other night, like, if you've got my back, I've got your back, to the city of Indianapolis. He's not going anywhere. And the other thing about his injury is guys can come back from these and play at very high levels. He's still young, and that's going to help him. So you've got Buchanan, you've got Pritchard, you've got Halliburton, and you've got Rick Carlisle, who's undeniably one of the best coaches in the league, who was on an absolute heater the entire playoff run. He will figure things out. Now, they got to find some pieces. And the biggest gut punch of all Sunday night wasn't just that they lost Game 7. They potentially lost the coming season as well, with Tyrese not coming back. So I think they can get back. Tyrese is really, really young in his career. Remember that. I mean, a guy like Kevin Durant did this, and he's played at a high level for 6 or 7 or 8 more seasons after that injury. So, no, I'm not closing the door on the Pacers at all. I do think the right pieces are in place for this team to keep coming. And again, like, who's the big roadblock in the East? Like, the Celtics are dealing with their issues. The Knicks don't even have a coach. Like, it's not like there's a juggernaut in the East that's standing in their way.
We had Ralph Reef on the show earlier this week, and we were talking about just the timeline of recovery for Tyrese. And he believes, Zach, that he can make a full recovery. During your course of covering the NFL, have you talked to any players that have come off a major injury, whether it was an Achilles, an ACL, or anything like that, to discuss on how they were mentally prior to the injury, when they were going through the rehab, and then after the surgery when they were making their way back onto the field?
Yeah. I mean, this isn't the same injury, but I wrote about Andrew Luck for 8 years, so
I guess I forgot about that.
I'm very well versed in the injuries. No, I've talked to a million athletes about that particular injury, calf strains, Achilles, ruptures. The biggest thing is going to be the mental part of it, from what they've told me. Everything is going to be fine physically in time. It's just Tyrese is a guy that cuts and he moves and he slashes. And having the confidence in his Achilles that he can do that is something that only he's going to be able to figure out. And it's going to take time. And look, if I'm the Pacers, I don't play him in the coming season. I just don't. Even if it's late April, I don't rush him back because he's not going to be himself. It's going to take time. I would just wash this entire season for him, because the mental grind is going to be the process that gets him back to who he is, that all caliber, all NBA player. And the other part is you cannot skip steps. He's going to want to. Every athlete wants to. They think they can cheat the process. They think they can go faster than the normal person, and they can to a degree, but if you cheat the steps, that's what sets you back. That's what makes it way worse. That's what cost you a season and a half as opposed to just a season. So I did listen to you guys' interview with Ralph Reef. I've talked to him over the years about injuries. He made a lot of good points. But remember, Tyrese is what, like 23, 24 years old, 25 at the oldest? Like,
yeah,
that's going to help him. The fact that he's not 30 or 31, like, that's going to help him a lot. So let's play the long game, because, he's the guy you want to build around in Indy for the next 10 years.
Zack Kefir, The Athletic, joining us. And Zach, you mentioned your work that you covered Andrew Luck, well documented. You were covering the Paul George days, well documented. Now you have Tyrese Halliburton going down. There's a lot of rumor, a lot of smoke around, a lot of talk online that the city is cursed when it comes to professional athletics. Do you believe in that?
I don't believe in curses. I don't believe in jinxes. One year, Adam Vinatieri had a perfect season kicking field goals, and I tweeted, like, right before he kicked, I tweeted, like, if he makes this, it's the best start for a Colts kicker in history or something. And he pushed it wide, and I got flagged from just about everybody in the organization, including Adam Vinatieri. But no, what I typed out on my computer that day didn't impact his kick in Tennessee. I don't know where this ranks for you guys. I want to hear your opinions, but you think about it, and I mean, the snake-bitten nature of the Pacers franchise is something I've thought about a lot this week, right? Like, this team, the best Reggie Miller teams ran into Michael Jordan's last Bulls team, and then the budding Lakers dynasty in 2000. You can make an argument that the 2004, 2005 team was the best Reggie/Jo/ Artest team, and we know what happened. You know, they were the number one team in the East, and their season died on a night in November at the Palace. And, you know, the Paul George teams were good enough to win a title, and they ran into the Heat dynasty, LeBron James and Dwayne Wade. And even going back to the 90s, I mean, the Pacers couldn't get over the hump against the Knicks in 94, and then ran into Penny Hardaway and Shaq the year later. And Paul George's injury, Victor's injury. This one's the hardest to take for me. And I don't know where you guys stand, but this team was good enough to win it all. I picked him before Game 7. You saw what Tyrese did, hitting 3 of his first 4 3-pointers. He had the look, right? Like, everybody who watches the team knows when Tyrese has that look where he's going to be aggressive offensively. And they had the lead at half after this happened. Like, you can't convince me this team wasn't going to win Game 7 somehow, some way, if that dude's on the floor. And I just feel like of all the gut punches this fan base has taken over the last 20, 25 years, this one might be the toughest one.
Yeah, I can't. I've been thinking about that too, and I'm trying not to be a victim of the moment, if you will.
Yeah.
Because that can happen a lot, and I gotta side with you. I mean, it's. I think it's the double of everything. It's Game 7. You're right there. Team of destiny. He's done it time and time again. He goes down, but then, like you said earlier, Zach, it's the double up of not only did that really bite you in the rear for that moment right now to win the title that you're in, but oh, by the way, you're gone without him for the entire next season. And I think when you combine those two, maybe the Luck retirement, it would be up there between the two. But at the same time, Luck had never been to the Super Bowl. Luck had never come, I mean, I guess, the AFC Championship, but wasn't as close at the doorstep of a Game 7 like Tyrese was. I think those could be the ones that are debated, though. Luck bowing out and retiring early, and then the injury and what happened with Tyrese Halliburton in Game 7.
I kind of agree with what Joey just said. The other element, too, that I would add into this is that of the 4 major stars that we just talked about, Luck, George, Oladipo, I would say Tyrese is probably the one of the 4 that has embraced the city the most with open arms. And I think it just goes back to how he handled, All-Star Weekend of pretty much being everywhere and being all across the city, interacting with fans. And he's been the most, I would say, likable out of the 4, just because, he understands what it means to play in the Midwest, being a kid from Oshkosh, Wisconsin, and he understands the city and this state loves basketball. So that's why I would probably echo with what you said and add that third element to it as well.
Do you think that, that's a fair debate between Andrew Luck in 2019 and what we saw on Sunday with Tyrese, Zach?
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't mention that because it wasn't Pacers related, but you talk about gut punches, right? I mean, that's, to continue your argument, that's a gut punch that lasts for 10 years.
Right.
Like, the Colts are still in that. They haven't found an answer. Ideally, Tyrese's situation is resolved within a year, and then he keeps going, right?
Yep.
But the Luck thing is, and I actually just, this is a little bit of a tease, but I have a big story on him coming out in the next couple of weeks. I went out to Palo Alto and spent some time with him, and he told me some stuff I never knew, never heard before. But that absolutely was a crater on that franchise in that moment. This is a smaller crater. This is something where he's going to come back and probably be himself in about 16 months or so, whenever that following season starts. But man, what does Indy got to do to get a break? I mean, this unbelievable. I heard Jake talking about this a lot in the playoff run. Like, look, I'm not an NBA reporter, but I have to be objective covering these games. But I'm also like a native Hoosier, so it's like impossible not to be pulling for this team. And on top of that, they're so dang likable. And I was in there, what was it, Thursday night, Game 6, and I asked Tyrese, like, straight up, like, dude, this team has never been here before. Like, how do you process that, and what's the next couple of days look like? And I thought back to that after the injury. Like, he gave the perfect answer. He was like, nothing matters before, nothing matters after. Like, this is what I've been working for my whole life. I'm going to be ready for this moment. And he was. And then what happened, and it just feels like the city just can't catch a break. And it's just tough to process, like, how and why, and when is this ever going to turn around and end differently for this city?
So you have I'll take it. No qualms about him going out there and playing with the risk that he knew, that everybody seemingly knew of what could happen. No qualms about that in Game 7 at all?
No, go win a title. If you win a title, they build you a statue and your legacy lives on forever. I think he deserves a ton of credit for doing that.
I agree, and I know JMV's been going in on that this week especially as well. But, you see things online and figured I'd ask.
Zack Kefir,
No, I mean, that's fair. That's fair. That's what the NBA discourse is for. But, this is what he played for his whole life. It's his decision to make. And I don't know if I'm speaking for Indianapolis, but I'm tired of finishing second. You know what I mean? I'm tired of this team finishing second. I want to see something different.
Zack Kefir of The Athletic joining us on the Ryan Geist Brewery guest line. Zach, to shift now toward the Indianapolis Colts. Do you think this quote-unquote quarterback competition is actually a competition right now between Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson?
I do. Maybe that's not what a lot of people believe, but I do believe it's a competition. I think it's a competition that Daniel Jones has a little bit of a head start on. And I think it's one that it's kind of difficult to see Anthony Richardson winning this competition. Now, I can explain that because it probably sounds crazy. I know Colts fans aren't probably thrilled at the idea of Daniel Jones being the week 1 starter and potentially the rest of the season starter. But look, Daniel Jones is going to be a better training camp quarterback than Richardson. We know what both of them do well. Richardson is going to be a highlight reel, but he's going to miss a lot of short throws, a lot of intermediate throws. And you can't do that in training camp and if you're trying to chase the guy in front of you. And Jones is going to be a little bit more boring. He's going to be more consistent. He's going to run the plays Steichen wants him to run, and he's going to get the ball out. And it just feels like Richardson's skill set does not lend well to a quarterback trying to unseat someone. The other thing is he needs to stay on the field, and this shoulder thing is worrisome, right? I mean, sounds like he's going to be full go at training camp, but when he stresses that AC joint, who's to say that's not going to happen a week into camp or 2 weeks into camp or 3 weeks into camp when you play a preseason game? So it can be an open competition all they want, but the reality is one of these quarterbacks is going to look better. And the great thing about training camp is all the fans are going to see it. The Colts are not going to be able to lie to us, right? The one thing Chris Ballard has always said is, you watch the same games I do. We may not be NFL general managers or scouts, but we can see who's good and who's not. And the media is going to be there every day. Kevin Bowen's going to be out there scouting every single stat, every single throw that these quarterbacks make. And so we'll have to look on 1070thefan.com to look at the stats and everything from August training camp practices. But look, I mean, we're going to be able to tell. And I don't think Richardson's going to climb past them in training camp, barring something unforeseen.
Now, what does that? I mean, where does that leave you? Though, regular season. Now, if you go out there with Daniel Jones, because Richardson can't surpass him in the regular season. I mean, that kind of to the fan base, it's got to signal we're out on Richardson, right?
No, Joey, and I know that sounds like it's headed that way, but I don't think that. And this is for a story I'm working on that will come out during the season, during the preseason. The Colts are not waving the white flag on Richardson. Even if he doesn't win this competition, it doesn't feel to me from the people I've talked to that they're willing to move on from him, even if he sits this entire year. I don't think that's the sentiment inside the building. Look, they took him when he was 21 years old. He was barely 21 years old. And he hadn't played enough in college, and they played him early, and they shouldn't have. So I don't think there's this big rush to judge him for what he is right now that's getting in the way of them believing that he could become a great player down the line, which is why they drafted him all along. So that's a long-winded way of saying if he doesn't win this competition and if he isn't the guy this year, I still am not sure the Colts are ready to move on yet.
Do you think that Anthony Richardson – because that's got to take a toll on somebody's psyche, right? That's got to take a toll on somebody's confidence, ego, all the above. If all of a sudden that he's not winning that job and he's sitting on the bench for 17 games this year as the 4th overall pick, mentally, not even physically, mentally, that's got to be tough for him to overcome too, no?
I don't think the Colts need to stress Anthony Richardson's psyche right now. And by that I mean you need to go earn the job, dude. I think that's where this team is at. They paid Daniel Jones a lot of money. I think that's where it is. They didn't make him earn the job against Gardner Minshew his rookie year, and that led to the problems that happened last year, right? The tap out against Houston, the I'm tired excuse, being benched for 2 games for not being ready, for not being prepared. Think about that. The franchise quarterback was benched for not being prepared. So I don't think they're worried about coddling him or bringing him along to the point where they're making sure he's good. I think they're basically saying, here's a ball. You need to go earn the job. And if you earn the job, then you'll play, just like every other position out there. I think that's the lesson they learned is they maybe coddled him too much his first 2 years, and they gave him too much too quickly. He wasn't ready. He didn't earn it like you need to earn it in this league. And that's where they are. So I think that's the reality is if he spends a year on the bench, I don't think the team is going to be worried about what it does to his psyche, because I think for him to be the guy, he's going to have to be a guy that can handle that.
Assuming Daniel Jones is the week 1 starter, Zack Kefir of The Athletic joining us on the Brian Geist Brewery guest line. How short of a leash, I got into a debate with Mark Dyson about this yesterday, how short of a leash does Daniel Jones have if he starts week 1 compared to Anthony Richardson if he starts week 1?
Yeah, that's a good question. Doesn't it feel like it'd be different for both players?
Yeah.
I wish we could ask Shane Steichen and get a real answer, but he's not going to be very expansive. If you guys know the Steichen interview position during training camp, I do think Jones will have a pretty long leash. I do think if they go with Jones in the beginning of the season, they're going to ride with Jones, barring an injury or like a Joe Flacco meltdown. Remember when Flacco became the starter last year, and it was like literally like they couldn't keep playing him because it was like the worst quarterback play anyone had ever seen. Barring like something like that, I think they roll with Jones, and I think they stick with it. I don't think they want to do the in and out thing that they've done the last couple of years, because it's just, what's held this team back the last 2 years? They've had a pretty solid defense. It faded late last year. They have a new coordinator. A lot of the defensive guys are fired up. Zaire Franklin, Kenny Moore, talked to him last week. He's like, we're gonna surprise some people on defense this year. It's the offense that needs to come around. They have the pieces. They got the first-round pick out of Penn State. It could be a stud. They got some offensive line questions. They got the running back. They've got a deep receiving room. Everything hinges on the quarterback. And if you have stability there, that gives you the best chance to have success. And again, C.J. Stroud is potentially hurt, and Houston didn't play in the mini camp. We'll see what happens in training camp. But this is still a winnable division despite the Colts' questions.
Zack Kefir of The Athletic with us. Zach, appreciate the time, man. You mentioned the Andrew Luck story that you're working on. What else are you working on, and where can people find that?
Yeah, Andrew Luck will go up in a couple of weeks, and a related story is a big project I've been working on for about 5 months. Essentially, why do so many young quarterbacks fail early in their careers? And it's not just Anthony Richardson specific, but he was benched. Bryce Young was the number one overall pick. He was benched. And the quarterbacks I talked to, the coaches, it was unbelievable. Troy Aikman, Peyton Manning, Andrew Luck, Chris Ballard, Matt Hasselbeck, Joe Flacco, Alex Smith, C.J. Stroud, Jaden Daniels. I've talked to every type of quarterback I could find, GMs as well, coaches, to kind of figure out why the hardest thing in sports is to predict whether a quarterback's going to succeed or fail, especially earlier in their careers, and found out a lot of interesting stuff. So that'll come out during July/early training camp time period as well. Yeah,
dude, you got this great connection with Andrew Luck. You got to kind of work my way in there. Can we make this happen? We got to get me and Luck together eventually, right?
Oh, he would love that, man. I was with him out in his office in Palo Alto, and Andrew Luck is not the Andrew Luck you remember, right? This guy's like 30 pounds lighter. He looks like he's like a college professor. But if you did the voice, man, he would give you that yuck, yuck, yuck laugh that he always gives. He would love it, dude.
Dude, does he have you mentioned it at all? I know he's off everything, internet, phone, but has he seen? Does he know?
He's not off internet or phone. That's the thing. I don't know if he knows about your impression. He's got 2 iPhones now. Think about that.
That's true. I guess now he has to have, being the GM of Stanford, you can't be
Correct.
Caveman.
He can't be Caveman, which he was a good caveman for a long time. He's got to recruit high school players too, right? So he's got to be on social media, which he's I always thought he was the last person in the world to join Instagram. I didn't ever bring up your voice, but I know he loves the Captain Andrew Luck impersonation. So he has no problem with those.
Okay. Well, I'll text you offline, and we'll see if we can make that happen. Just slide that, since you got such an in with him. Your podcast series that you did about him was fantastic. One of my favorite things I've ever listened to. And now you got this article coming out. So really looking forward to seeing that, Zach. Appreciate you as always, man. Zack Kefir of The Athletic. You have a good 4th of July, pal.
You guys too. Thanks, guys.
Good stuff. I've had a couple dreams where me and Andrew Luck are in the same room.
Now, would you have a conversation with Andrew Luck as Andrew Luck?
It depends on how he feels about it. Because that's a common question that I get is like, have you ever done anybody in front of them? Anybody that you do in front of them? And
you did Manning, didn't you?
I kind of did that a little bit for that sketch, but Peyton's great. Like, he obviously is the most media savvy, media trained guy ever. But it seems like there's a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel there with Luck. We might be able to make that happen.
And especially with 2 phones now. Someone who doesn't have 2 phones, but one that will be on the hotline next. That'll be Bria Goss. She'll be on the call later tonight for the Fever. In Dallas against the Wings, we'll get the lowdown of what happened last night with Bria and the Sparks loss as well on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. It was not shining last night in Gainbridge Fieldhouse for the Indiana Fever. They had a 10-point lead against the Sparks, and they end up getting outscored big time in the fourth quarter, 35-17. Fever lose 85-75. They're a game below 500, but good news for Indiana fans is that they're back in action tonight at 7:30 against the Dallas Wings. On the call tonight at 7:30 on 93.5 and 107.5, The Fan will be John Nolan and our next guest, the Fever Radio Network analyst, Bria Goss, joining us. Bria, good afternoon. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. Let's start with last night's game before we start looking towards Dallas tonight. I talked with you post-game a lot about this last night, so if people missed it, then they're going to get a little bit of a rerun. That second quarter, the Fever at one point were holding the Sparks to, I think it was like 1 of 7 shooting or 1 of 9 shooting and 7 turnovers. They only outscored the Sparks by 5, 15-10. I thought that's where the game was lost, and not really that fourth quarter when they get outscored by 18.
Yeah, man, that was a tough one, and they were playing such good defense. The Fever were, as they limited their shots and shots extremely difficult. It was one of those things where they stopped the transition buckets, just kind of frustrated the Sparks in a way to where they just couldn't buy a bucket at that point. And then, honestly, I think it was just the confidence after just watching the film back. It was the confidence of the Sparks and how they just rallied. 1 or 2, people hit a couple easy shots. The next thing you know, the next person gets confidence, the next person. So Kelsey Plum absolutely came alive in that fourth, which superstars do. Stevens, who had been good all game, did what she did best. And it was just a tough break for the Fever as they just have to refocus when the Sparks go on those runs and how to stop them and what adjustments they need to make.
It was another game without Caitlin Clark, the 6th of the season, and now 2-4 without her. Yesterday, Sydney Colson got the start, only playing 17 minutes. Ari McDonald off the bench got 24. Sophie Cunningham got 27. What player do they need to step up outside of Aaliyah Boston, even though she already shoulders a ton of work, as does Kelsey Mitchell, in order to pick up the load that Caitlin Clark is leaving behind if she cannot play tonight?
Yeah, everybody. I mean, Caitlin Clark, of course, they're big shoes to fill. What she can bring offensively as far as her scoring ability and her passing, and just the fact that you have to know where she's at all times. So that alone, when she's out on the floor, they miss her presence. So Kelsey Mitchell, Aaliyah Boston, Sid Colson, McDonald, Sophie, Lexi, like as a collective whole, if everybody ups their game, then we will come close to filling those shoes. And I know that they know that going in. This isn't their first rodeo of mixed games from CC, but so they're almost in a sense where they're kind of used to it. And I think they all know going in that it's going to be a full roster task to be able to do that.
Bria Goss, Fever radio analyst, is joining us right here on Query and Company on a Friday. And Bria, got to ask, any update on Caitlin for tonight?
Not that I know of. Yep, and I know Steph mentioned yesterday it was day-to-day, but as it is beautiful and sunny out here in Dallas, I have not heard anything as of yet.
Got it. And then after, you're back-to-back, and going from home, loss, then on the road, back-to-back, is there any lingering effect? I mean, how much does that stay with the squad going in on the road the night after?
So speaking from an athlete's perspective, back-to-back games are tough. I mean, you feel the bumps and the bruises from the night before, and you almost essentially like mentally feel it as well. So from an athlete standpoint, very tough task to do. From the analyst side, definitely possible, and there's things that you have to be able to flip the script on. You can't dwell too much on the loss, less than 24 hours prior. You got to be able to have a full new scouting report and way of playing and way of mindset. And honestly, like last night's was last night's. Today's, and this is a brand new day. They can't linger and let that loss affect how they play today. All they can do is hopefully watch the film, get better at the points that Steph had pointed out, and then come out and execute whatever game plan it is for today.
The Sparks last night, Bria, were entering on a 4-game losing skid. They were one of the worst teams in the WNBA. And tonight they get the Dallas Wings, who are 4-12, the second worst record in the WNBA. You can't go into this game if you're a Fever player overlooking an opponent just because you are potentially without Caitlin Clark It's a second night of a back-to-back. What kind of mindset? I know there wasn't any shoot-around, but you did fly with the team down to Dallas yesterday. What was the overall mindset of the team going down there last night?
Yeah, well, the best thing about the W is that the fact that anybody can be beaten on any given night, no matter the record. And we have to take pride in knowing that, and we got to be able to know that, like, because of that, we better come out and be ready to go. I would say the vibe, just from, outside looking in, I know we're on the same plane. I am still kind of on the outskirts, so I would say it's fine. It's focused. It's lasered. They know that they can play better, and they know that they're going to click. I know at the beginning of the season, head coach Steph White said that, give us till July, really all-star break to really, figure things out and where people go and how we want to mesh together. And so it's still very early in the season. I think they know that, and they know that they can play better, and that especially if CC plays tonight, I think that it'll just, be a boost of energy as well. But honestly, it's one of those things where your competitiveness kicks in, so it's not like they're all happy-go-lucky, but it's also like they're not, their spirits aren't defeated either.
How much, if anything, Bria, does a situation like DeWanna Bonner have on inside the locker room, and how that can play out on the court? Is there any lingering effects there, you think, maybe perhaps with this little skid that the Fever have been on?
Honestly, and if I could put myself in their shoes as a former athlete, I know how I would handle that situation, and it'd be one of those things where I wish her the best, but then also try to focus in with whatever walls or perimeters that we have built. So whoever is in the locker room fighting for us at that time, that's who it's going to be. And if you're not, again, there's no ill will to it. It's just, I can't just sit on that and be upset about that. Like, things are moving. Time is going. They're getting ready to go on a long stretch stretch at home, thank goodness. But, there's not a lot of time to sit in it. And as well for DB, too, there's not a lot of time for her to sit in it either. So it kind of works both ways.
The 2011 Indiana Miss Basketball out of Ben Davis High School, Bria Goss joins us. Another thing I want to add into this and part of the conversation is just like how tough this season has been for the Fever. Outside of them, they're 2-6 right now, I think, in clutch games, which is a game where you're either winning or losing by 5 points in the final 4 minutes. They've had two not really dismissals, but Stephanie White has missed 2 games. Caitlin Clark has missed 6 games. The whole DeWanna Bonner situation. How tough has this been mentally for the Fever so far? And is this something that at the later stages of the year, this is what they can learn from and become a more collective unit?
Yeah, man, it's been tough. It has not. Definitely hasn't been the picture perfect, season by any means, but I mean, adversity, right? Pressure, making diamonds, being able to learn from mistakes and being able to, I don't even know how many games at this point they've actually had a full roster. You know what I mean? I think it's 2. So it hasn't gone, nearly or anywhere close to what, we would have thought it had went, but I think that's the beauty of the sport. Right, if everything went the way that we wanted to, then it'd be kind of boring. So being able to then look back at the end of the season to what they were at this point to where they ended up, I think is going to be beautiful, and I think it's going to make them stronger. And I'm glad that they are facing all the adversity and injuries and all that stuff now versus, postseason things. So I can't really say too much about it. I know it can be difficult. It can be difficult mentally. And I think that is probably the biggest focus going in. But other than that, especially the vets that have played through adversity, they know that this is just part of the game.
We've already seen a couple of talented rookies out in Connecticut earlier in the season for the Fever. Now they face Paige Beckers tonight in Dallas, who's won 3 of their last 4 games. What are you looking forward to tonight in terms of that matchup of how Indiana will be able to defend Paige Beckers?
Man, isn't it fun? Like, isn't it fun? Like,
yeah.
This is just fun basketball, right? I mean, Paige and everything that she brings to the game and how, like, the challenges and her as a rookie playing like a vet. Like, there's just so many great things about these new rookies, these newcomers, and even the vets, too. And I think it's just wrapped up in this big ball of we out here to do our job and do our job well and go home. And so this being the first time the Fever get to play against Paige, they're definitely not going to take it lightly. It's I think they love her and want to embrace her, but they also know that it's time to compete. So I think it's going to be go time. I think it's going to be a great competitive game, and we'll see what game plan we come up with.
I got my WNBA teams confused. I meant to say Washington with Sonia Citron and Kiki Irvin, but forgive me later. Bria, thank you for the time. I'll talk to you later tonight.
Yes, no problem. Thanks so much.
That's Bria Goss, the Fever Radio Network analyst, joining us on the Rheingeist Brewery guest line. I know, Joey, that you've been enamored with all of the Pacers stuff this year. Just overall thoughts on the Fever so far?
Yeah, it's tough because I think you have all the expectations in the world, obviously, with CC on your squad and how much she's taken over the sports world. And so I think you start to put the cart ahead of the horse there a little bit and thinking, hey, second year, she's going to go off now. We're bringing in all these pieces. We've grown together after Caitlin's rookie year. We got the All-Star game here coming up. There's so much momentum. And then, like Bria said, you find yourself a little bit of adversity, but hey, rather it earlier than later. So let's just get through this moment, go to the All-Star break, and really start getting things rolling into August, September.
You mentioned about things coming up, the All-Star break, the All-Star game. In less than 6 weeks now, 6 weeks from yesterday, the 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan Invitational Golf Outing presented by Franciscan Health will be on Thursday, August the 7th with a tee time of 10 a.m. at the – have you golfed at Legends?
I have not. I've heard great things.
I have as well, but I'm not much of a golfer, as I noted yesterday with Mark Dykton. If I tried to golf – I would pretty much have to turn myself 90 degrees sideways because
got a slice.
Yep, because of
slice.
The former baseball swing. I just can't shake it. But good. All the information about the event can be available at 1075thefan.com. I teased it earlier. Brad Pitt had some nice words about IndyCar. What were they? We'll play them next. Quarry & Company, 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Oh, yeah. Beautiful Friday on Monument Circle, downtown Indianapolis. Joey Mulinaro, Eddie Garrison in for Jake Query. The song always reminds me. You seen School of Rock, Eddie?
Oh, man. I don't think so.
Anything good he's never seen.
I picked up on that listening to the show. Nathaniel, you seen it?
I have not, so I have no room to
I'm
talk.
just
Yeah,
here
with
on
Jack
my
Black.
own here.
I've seen it. Yes, yeah. It's been a long time. Yeah, but I've seen
As
it.
you're Googling it, right? Yeah, the 2004 comedy, Jack Black. You just looked it up
I
right
had to
now.
make sure it was that was the right one.
That was the right one.
I didn't think it was like House of Rock or something like
him
that.
and Joan Cusack there at the bar, little Stevie Nicks. Yeah, it's Friday. It's a great show so far. We've had Jeremiah Johnson, Zack Kefir, Bria Goss. You can find those on the podcast page, 1075thefan.com as well. And there is, we're halfway point of the IndyCar season, Eddie. And so a little bit of a downtime this weekend for IndyCar. We got Jack Harvey coming up at the top of the hour. We'll talk with him about the first half, look ahead to the second half. But big in the motorsport world, as always,
Yes.
is Formula One.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I myself don't fancy myself as too much of a Formula One guy because I'm so dedicated to Indy, IndyCar, and the mission we're trying to accomplish, which is to prove best racing series in the world.
See, the girlfriend over here has pulled me into F1.
You get on the Netflix kick.
Not the Netflix kick. I just watch the races. I
It's
don't
a
really.
thrilling experience.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm more so forced to watch the races than I am willingly sitting there watching them and turning them on. But yeah,
Well, you know what? As a man who's been married for almost 6 years, happy wife, happy life. So
Mhm.
I understand
Yeah.
fully well. But the F1 movie came out today, in theaters everywhere, I'm pretty sure, starring old Brad Pitt. And one thing that you don't see too often is these celebrities, these famous people, well-to-do, well-off, who are always at the Formula One events. You don't see them give too much love to our guys, the good guys, I'll call them,
Yep.
here in the IndyCar series, right? The Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the Indy 500. But Brad Pitt was on Dak Shepard's show, and he had some thoughts himself on IndyCar.
You know, MotoGP races, there's just not enough of them.
No, there's not.
So then you start dipping into F1 a little bit.
Yeah.
Now there's not enough F1 races, so I start dipping into Indy. You watching Indy?
No, I
Whoa,
can't.
Indy's
You're
great.
in?
Oh, I love
Dude, will we get a reverb on that? What is
I
going
don't know.
on?
I don't know.
A little slow motion? They're sipping on some syrup or something there?
I don't know if it was going through the puberty again or not. I don't
That
know.
was interesting. Okay, but that was Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
Didn't sound necessarily like him, but it was Brad Pitt on Dak Shepard's show. I think it's Armchair Expert is the podcast, something along those lines. But that's phenomenal. That's absolutely great that an A-list celebrity of his status who is out promoting a movie about Formula One
I know.
finds himself talking highly and how much he loves Indy and IndyCar.
I think the sport of IndyCar is in a great spot right now. The first year being back on Fox and on national televised, and they have everything covered, all practices, all quals, everything. I have to commend Roger Penske in that respect and Doug Bowles for the job they've done and making sure the sport gets promoted. And I think it helps too when you have some of the personality of like Alex Palou, Kyle Kirkwood starting to come onto the scene, and Pato O'Ward, who is obviously a big fan favorite, who hasn't won yet this year. And Joey, you and I were talking about this earlier. Of course, the Indianapolis 500 is a race that I've been to, that you've been to, Nathaniel's been to. I haven't been to any outside of that. You've been to Mid Ohio, and I think you can. Have you been to any others as well?
St. Pete, which is great. I mean, you want to talk about spring break for grown-ups. Like, if you have
Yeah.
a chance, get down there. It's always last week of February, first week of March, where you can go down there. St. Pete, and it's run through the streets, and it's phenomenal. Great weather. Always a really fun, hectic race. Was out there at Long Beach for some practices. I didn't stay for the race, but I was out in California at the time, so me and my wife went and swung through there and checked that out. But Long Beach is obviously, the crown, besides Indy, the crown jewel of the IndyCar series. So
Yeah, the point I was going to get to was that it just feels like the camaraderie and the fan interest is starting to gain steam, and you're seeing it more than just in Indy, where you're seeing more fans come out to these races where they're partying before the race and they're having a great time, and IndyCar's doing a great job with it.
Yeah, in the St. Louis race, the Bommarito out there at Gateway, that was fantastic too on Father's Day night. I don't know if you caught any of that.
I did, and I told Landon Coons, he and I were talking about it after the next day. I was like, that's one of the more fun races that IndyCar's had in a long time, outside of a 500.
Yep. A lot of they love those short ovals, man. They got plenty of them here on the back end of this 2025 schedule. You go to Iowa for a doubleheader. You got Milwaukee coming up as well. The ovals, the short ovals, man, you see a lot of action, and I think that's a great way. I think sometimes it's the intimidation factor for people. They're just like, racing, I don't know too much about it. I don't know if I want to jump in just because it's like, I want them to finish first, but the strategy, listen, when they're on the short oval, there's so many passes, there's so much action that happens anyways, and honestly, our fellas Jack, Hinch, Will, Townsend, Georgia, they all do such a great job on Fox of setting up, hey, this is what they're doing, this is why they're pitting here, this is what their tire situation's looking like. So I encourage everybody, obviously, to tune in when they get back. Mid-Ohio coming up next weekend. We'll talk to Jack Harvey about that from Fox here coming up at the top of the hour. Old Hollywood Harvey. I won't call him that to his face because he hates it, but damn, is he a good-looking guy. I want to ask him about, because now we got Brad Pitt loving Indy, and there's been rumblings that they want to make a Days of Thunder with Tom Cruise and a Brad Pitt F1 crossover type of movie, and similar to the main host, the namesake of the show, he says, why not Indiana?
Yep.
I say, why not IndyCar? Why not the Indy 500 for a movie between Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt? Bring him to Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Let's fire it up.
I was going to say, you were talking about Mid-Ohio coming up next, and Jack Harvey, let's say, being on the television side. I think the host would hate it if, I'm here every day. If I failed to mention that, you would listen to the IndyCar Radio Network as well, if you're in your car.
Shout out to Mark Janes, Jake, Nick,
Michael
everybody,
Young.
Ryan,
Yep.
Michael, everybody over there. I mean, everybody knows here. This fantastic stuff they do on the IndyCar Radio Network.
I'd be fascinated to know, and I can ask Jack Harvey this. We're talking about the short ovals and how exciting they are. Does that play a role in, like, the hybrid? Like, is it easier for these cars, for the hybrid to pass on shorter ovals versus the bigger ovals like at IMS?
We're going to have to ask him, because I'm not a race car driver and I don't have that kind of insight.
I
But it's a
don't
good
either.
thing that we have somebody who has just that insight who's coming up. And I also want to get his thoughts, actually, on a potential movie about the Indy 500.
Oh.
Because they call him Hollywood Harvey. And like I said, he's good looking enough. My man could be in that.
You think he'd be the star next to Brad Pitt? And
No, I'm not saying,
Tom?
you got to have Cruise and Pitt drive the series, literally and figuratively drive the show. But having somebody like Harvey in there as a pit reporter, or heck, diving him in the car as well for just a little cameo, I don't think that would be bad. I don't think that would be out of the question. All right, stay with us. 239-1070 is the number. Hop in here as well. Jack Harvey coming up next, talking all things IndyCar in the second half. Back on a beautiful Friday, downtown Indianapolis. Eddie Garrison, Joey Mulinaro filling in for Jake Query. Glad you're with us. Been a fun one so far. Jeremiah Johnson, Zack Kefir, Bria Goss. All great conversations you can find on the podcast page, 1075thefan.com. Our next guest playing some of his some music from his homeland, the Beatles. And that is the very lovely, the very handsome, my mate, Jack Harvey, Fox IndyCar pit reporter. Jack, how you doing, brother?
Doing good, man. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for hopping on with us. What is someone like yourself doing on an IndyCar weekend off? What you got?
To be honest, man, I feel like there have been so few of them. I kind of find myself not knowing what to do. I'm going to go to that new F1 movie that came out today, so I'm going to go check that out at some point. But otherwise, I'm just going to try and do as little as possible.
Well, good for you. And you know what? We were talking about that right before we went to break to get to you, Jack. Have you seen the Brad Pitt clip, I presume?
Oh, about, MotoGP and Formula One and then IndyCar?
Yeah.
That was pretty cool.
Pretty epic, right?
Pretty epic indeed. I just feel like Indy, like his clip there, to me, is what so many people feel like when they finally get around to watching Indy.
Did you feel some validation? Did you feel like a little bit of some respect on our name, huh?
Well, man, I mean, I'm obviously biased, like completely biased, but I think IndyCar racing is better than Formula One because of the parity. And I know that Pallot's dominating and he's having, just the most impressive season that I've ever witnessed in my lifetime, to be honest, where, you use Formula One as an example. If your car is good, like, Mercedes had it for a long time, Red Bull have had it, seems like it's McLaren at the moment, you only really got to beat a couple of people. In IndyCar, you got to beat everybody every weekend. So it did feel like some cool validation. And also, Brad Pitt's a huge star. I mean, he's one of the biggest actors in the world. So you just feel like with him saying that clip organically, hopefully that's what continues to draw eyeballs in, right?
Jack Harvey, Fox IndyCar pit reporter. You see him doing the grid walk every weekend. He'll be doing that at Mid-Ohio coming up next weekend, but got the weekend off here. And so this is kind of the halftime, halfway through the season here, Jack, before things really ramp up even more in July and August for IndyCar. You mentioned Palou, obviously dominated much of the series and headlines so far, but what, if anything else, has surprised you or caught your eye through the first half of the season?
Ooh, good question, honestly. I feel like Christian Lundgaard's had a pretty good season. I know he's had maybe a couple of races that he wasn't, super thrilled about, but I thought that transition to McLaren has been a really solid one. I got to say, man, I thought that Christian Rasmussen's performance in St. Louis was awesome. Mm-hmm. So maybe a few of the drivers that are still maybe finding their feet a little bit, feels like they've really elevated themselves. I feel like AJ Foyt Racing have had a really good, 4 or 5 events now.
Yeah, I mean, I
think it's just kind of cool. And then the obvious one, which I'm sure you've probably chatted about or, probably agree with, is this whole Penske perfect just hasn't happened this year. And it looks like it's been so close to them finally getting back onto their normal style of weekend and normal performances. And then it just seems like there's always another something that stops it.
Will Power, as you mentioned it, he's 7th right now in the standings. Scott McLaughlin 8th. And you look at Joseph Newgarden 17th. It has been nothing but short of a forgetful season for Joseph. How can he build off of this time away from IndyCar this week and kind of look forward now to the start of the second part of the season, I should say?
Well, I mean, I think all of them have been fast. I think realistically for Will and Scotty to still be in the top 10 after everything that they have kind of also gone through. I mean, I asked Scotty that exact question at Road America, and his reply, albeit probably one that you would expect, I actually believe it, that he lives it, is their speed is there. This is not a speed-related issue. It just seems to be a few bits out of their control, not every weekend, but some. And I think at least from Scotty's perspective, from what he told me, which I've no reason to doubt him, is it's very cliche. They're focusing on what they can control so they can limit the bits that aren't. And then, specifically to Joseph, obviously he's a super private person. He's probably the guy that I know the best that I have no idea what he does when he's away from the track. Like his speed's there. Obviously, I thought he was in a strong position, at Indy and then St. Louis, and ended up upside down through no fault of his own. So I don't know, man. I guess at that point, when you've got the speed, and Team Penske is a fantastic team, a lot of experience there. They've obviously gone through some changes. It probably just takes a little bit of time for that all to settle down, and everyone comes back, and that week off can be like so rejuvenating for people that I'm sure that's what they're focused on, is how they're able just to get that season going, refired, resparked, and just, hit the ground running. Because from when you pretty much come back from mid-Ohio to the end of August, what is it, like something wild, like 7 races in 8 weekends or something?
Yeah, I think there's only one other weekend off. Yep.
So, man, you really got to use this time to turn it around, and I'm sure they will. It's IndyCar's hard at the minute. It's one of the most competitive series in the world, and it's just not been their usual year.
That's Fox IndyCar pit reporter Jack Harvey joining us. And Jack, what can be more frustrating? You mentioned how Scotty and Joseph and Penske, they have the speed, but there's kind of some things out of their control that isn't going in their favor. I mean, can that almost be more frustrating than, just being able to say, you know what, we just don't have the speed, and you just chalk it up as that, just knowing that, hey, it's there, it's just not coming together for us?
I would generally rather finish 6th, knowing that the opportunity to win on speed was available, than finishing 5th and knowing that you would completely maximize and that was just the best you could do.
Yeah.
So I think for them, at least from my perspective, if I was one of their cars, although you'd be frustrated because you want to win and you feel like all the pieces of that puzzle are there, even if they've not come together to form a nice jigsaw yet, not having the speed, I think, is a more stressful conversation. Just from my perspective.
Yeah, definitely. All right. We're halfway through the season here. I'm looking at the standings, and you mentioned, and Kyle Kirkwood's been on a little bit of a heater himself there for Andretti Global, getting his first oval win, winning in Detroit again. So all we've had is Palou and Kirkwood. Now, heading into the second half of the season, Jack, are you still taking Palou over the field, or now with Kirkwood and Pato kind of creeping in there a little bit, you feeling less solid about Palou taking the title?
No, I mean, on the IndyCar warm-up show on Sunday at Road America, they said, who do you think is going to win the race? And I said, Palou. I think if he is starting in the top 5, they just seem to get him to the front. And the thing that's so impressive about what he's doing, and it's actually not just this year, he's done it a lot of times, he just seems to be able to do a different tire strategy than everybody else, where sometimes they go to reds, he'll be on blacks, and he'll be just wicked fast. So I just feel like at the minute, him and his team, Barry Wanzo calls his race, the rest of his mechanics, they just seem to be so in sync that clearly they're beatable because, Kyle has done it, but he's the only person that has done it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm still very much staying on the Palou going to be champion. But what I think is really interesting about these years, it really does force people to rise to it. And clearly, Kyle Kirkwood has had a fantastic season, and within the opportunities that he's had, has risen to that challenge, which I think is absolutely awesome. And I think it'll be interesting then to see what he does long-term future as well.
Jack Harvey.
I know that he's locked in. Yeah.
I was going to say, Jack Harvey, our guest on the Ryan Geist Brewery guest. I want to go back 12 days ago with the Bomarito Automotive Group Grand Prix. That's back-to-back wins for Kyle Kirkwood. To fast forward to now, it's been, as you were just talking about with Joey, Palou and Kirkwood. Do you feel like those two have the best understanding of the hybrid and how the car works compared to the rest of the field?
Hard to say they don't because of how good they've been, realistically since it's come in, and then conversely, someone who openly admits that he struggled with the hybrid to find the feeling and the balance of the car that he's been looking for is Pato. So, I guess you would almost have to say the answer to that question is yes. It looks as if, especially Palou and Kyle Kirkwood, have found something they like within the hybrid. I don't think it's the application of the hybrid on track. It's probably more so how it affects the handling of the car.
Did you like it?
Mm, it was fine. I mean, I didn't. I don't know, man. My personal feeling on the hybrid, not that anyone really cares, is I'd
Yeah,
like
we
to
do. That's
see
why
it
we're
be.
asking. You're go on.
I'd like to see it be a slower recharge, that it's more difficult for the drivers to actually recharge the hybrid unit, but it had a more powerful effect when you were deploying. That's what I'd like to see. Because I think then that's where you would see different drivers, different teams have, some different strategies on how they save, how they deploy. I think that would be cool. I think the current hybrid system is a little bit too like sim racer, where you just come off the corner, you hit the button, and you're done.
Are those concerns being voiced to IndyCar?
Oh, nah, I think that's probably a bit above my pay grade, and then also probably how many races that I get to generally do, and that's only just like my opinion on the whole as well. I don't really know how the other drivers feel about it. That was purely just how I felt about it.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I just didn't know if you're talking to them every week. You're obviously still in the circle in the know, so you got people like Pato who are very boisterous about their thoughts about it, and so just didn't know if you had heard any rumblings inside about whether those are being voiced to the people who make those decisions and if they were being heard at all. I gotta
I
ask,
know
Jack.
that they. I know. Yeah, no, dude. That's honestly been one of the hardest things about this year for me is going to some of my friends and my pals and being like, look, I don't want to have to ask you this, but I got to. It's part of my job, so totally get it. I would say they have been voiced. I would say they have been heard. I would say generally, I think when the new car comes out, that's probably when you would see the biggest change. Because I also think that comes down to then, Honda, Chevy having the ability to actually develop something new and therefore something different, right? So, and IndyCar themselves, and that takes time. I think the hybrid came so quick, and it came out mid-season, which I can't remember the last time a racing series has made something that significant change mid-season that I think they just want to make sure that it works well, which I think on the whole the hybrid has been performing to a standard that they hoped it would. I would say IndyCar as a series and as a governing body actually do listen to a lot of the teams, a lot of the drivers. And I know sometimes people will say, well, there's no change on the end result, but actually I think there are changes, and I think they do listen, and then you just have to balance that with the practical side of can we actually do it.
That's Jack Harvey. You can watch him next weekend, every weekend. There's an IndyCar race on Fox. IndyCar's coverage, pit reporter out there with Hinch and Will and Townsend and Georgia and the whole rest of them. Jack, you mentioned the new car. Is that new car ever going to come? Is this going to keep getting pushed back?
Well, I mean, I certainly hope it doesn't get pushed back much more than what it has done. I see that it's been, scheduled now for 2028?
That's the last I saw, I think.
Yeah, that was the last I saw too. And it was funny because everyone was like, oh yeah, it's been pushed back. And I'm like, I don't think that I've seen that confirmed by anybody. And even IndyCar were like, yeah, we pushed it back. I'm like, have you done a press release about that? And then a couple of days later, it obviously, kind of came out. Look, dude, here's my feeling on that too. Like, let's just get the best car. If that's a year later, this car's more than safe enough for what we're doing. So if having an extra year to develop something really cool that would take IndyCar from where it is to a whole nother step higher elevation, I'm fine with it. So, and also I think a lot of the teams, realistically, they've got so much money wrapped up and tied into, their current cars and stuff. I can't imagine that they would be terribly disappointed to know they don't have to spend a lot of money for at least another year.
Jack, as somebody, I watch most races. I can't catch all of them just because of the other things that I have to do. So I'm aware of like these discussions that have been going on with a new car. What in particular would drivers like to see change from the current car to the next car?
I think that to me anyway, again, it would be weight and cooling, probably the biggest things. I think this car's become too heavy. It's a little sluggish. It kind of has like a bit more of a rollover, sensation opposed to being a bit sharper, a bit more nimble. So I think that if they could reduce the overall weight of the car, I think that would be really cool. And then also maybe a slight redesign around the halo and the the screen, just to try and get a little bit more airflow into the cockpit. That would be the two things that I would push for.
Because Formula One doesn't have the screen, right? Just the halo.
That's correct.
Okay, and they prefer it that way because of the ventilation. We saw the guys after Road America last week. Everybody jumping out of their car literally to go get water from guys in the RVs outside of the fences. So that's key, right? Not just for performance, but just straight up comfort and health, right?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I thought it was pretty cool that Santino at least, like, I don't know if he chugged the beer and he dropped it and it looked like it was foaming too much anyway. But I respect that he had a couple of sips of beer after the race. I thought that was kind of fun. But yeah, I mean, look, I would love to know what the actual temperature is inside the cockpit. I don't think anyone's ever really got a concrete answer on that, especially when you go to places like Road America, and that weekend was like 20 degrees hotter than what the average has been there over, a decade. So I do think getting a bit more airflow to the driver would be important. Also, my just, kind of, not to go on a tangent, but slight technical thing, I think that the driver cool suit should be included in the weight of the car and shouldn't be a disadvantage for someone like Graham, who, although he's lost a ton of weight, is a bigger chap. He shouldn't not be able to use it because of being overweight. That should just be a bigger part of that should be part of the car weight, not the driver weight.
Jack, what track are you looking forward to most here in the second half?
Ooh, you mean just purely from like a fan?
Yeah, just it could be fan, how it broadcasts, best racing, just what you're looking forward to most.
Man, I love Nashville. I just love Nashville as an entire event. Obviously, I preferred it when the race was downtown and you were proper in that hustle and bustle and stuff and whatnot.
That was wild.
That was kind of cool. Other good races. I like Toronto. Honestly, man, I always thought Toronto was a really fun event and weekend. I like going to Portland. I think the track's kind of cool. Milwaukee Mile, we had a great race there last year, and I thought it was fun to get people back to the mile. But probably Nashville is probably the one that I'm just excited about from when the weekend starts to the weekend finishes.
Yeah, it's the finale coming up at the end of August. Yep.
Outside of the drivers that we've talked about, you just hit on some of the races you're looking forward to. Outside of like Palou, Kirkwood, Pato, and the Penske drivers, is there a driver that you're going to watch closely during the second half of the season?
No, I can't think of like one specifically. I think if I was to think about a guy that I think will be good on a lot of the tracks that are still coming up, it would be Connor Daly. It was quickest at Iowa when they tested there. Obviously, that's a doubleheader weekend, and then you've got you've got Milwaukee left to come, and then Nashville. I mean, the guy seems to be really strong on the ovals. So, I think Connor would be a guy I'd love to see have a really strong second half of the season. And I think he'll be good at those tracks. So he's probably my guy that I'm cheering on.
Going with the local flavor. I love it. Jack, what's coming up Mid-Ohio here, 4th of July weekend? Bummed I can't be there. I know I've been out there with you a handful of years, and it's always a great time celebrating the 4th of July and a great racing out there. But somebody who has driven at Mid-Ohio, has raced there, and now you're on the TV side, what is something that is especially key for that race at Mid-Ohio?
I always found that the car needs to change direction really quickly. There's so many corners that lead into an immediate corner that finding that balance of the car being too soft and kind of rolling around and being too stiff where you're not getting maximum grip, that's probably the biggest thing that I always focused on there. One of the things I generally like about Mid-Ohio is how many fans come out and camp. Now, what I will say, I wish it wasn't on 4th of July weekend, because that's such a huge celebration in America, obviously, probably one of the biggest ones of the year, if not the biggest one of the year. It's a great party, but I feel like it takes a little bit of the attendance away. I'd love to see that weekend be off, and then people come back to Mid-Ohio like the following weekend. I've always enjoyed being in the campgrounds at night, going and hanging out with people, because it just feels like that's where you get your core group of like racing fan. And I think that's sweet.
Yeah, Fourth of July is a big deal for you. I know that. Where you come from, so I know you want to celebrate.
4th of July, I let you have it. Like, if we do 4th of July, I'm here. I join in. Thanksgiving, I like a lot, but yes.
Jack, you got a date we're working with for the F1 movie, or what's the plan here?
Well, I'm third wheeling tonight, so not
with who?
No, Brian and Katie Simpson.
Ah, okay. There we go. Buzzkill, huh?
Yeah.
Very good. Very good. All right. Well, real quick. We're talking about the Brad Pitt commentary there on Indy. People have been wanting for a crossover, Tom Cruise, Brad Pitt coming for an IndyCar movie. Do you have anything off the top of your head, an Indy 500 movie with those guys? Any quick elevator pitch plot point that you could see happening or that you would want to see happen for a film like that?
Well, I mean, if I was going to think not Brad Pitt, if I was going to think about Tom Cruise and motor racing, obviously you think about Days of Thunder.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering, what if Cole Trickle decided to ditch NASCAR and come and do the Indy 500 the same time that Brad Pitt's character wanted to do the Indy 500?
I think that sounds perfect. And now, would Jack Harvey be a pit reporter or a driver in that?
Driver.
Absolutely, you would.
Don't get me wrong, like doing everything with Fox has been so awesome and so fantastic, and it's a great opportunity. It's kept me busy. It's kept me at the track. But man, putting the helmet back on in May, that's what I live for. So if there's an opportunity to drive, obviously I'm always going to try and take it, even though I really enjoyed what I've done with Fox.
And it doesn't hurt that you got the Hollywood Harvey nickname now, right, pal?
Dude, you know me. That's like the goofiest nickname for me. I'm like the least Hollywood person in this pit lane, which is why Will Buxton tells me it's funny. But I'm embracing it, just mostly because I can't get away from it. So.
I know. They were asking me before. They're like, "You gonna bring that up?" I was like, "Dude, Jack hates it." But now that we're talking about the movies, I couldn't resist.
Might as well.
Couldn't resist.
No, that's fine.
All right, Jack. Hey, man. Appreciate the time
Man,
as always,
not
pal.
One Star Wars question.
Well, I saved those for when we're having a few pints, which we still got to do. Okay, and I'll text you after and we'll figure something out. All right.
Let's do it.
All right, that's Jack. Thanks, pal. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, lads. Thank you for having me.
Yep. That's Jack Harvey. You can see him every week in IndyCars Racing on Fox IndyCar, doing a great job. This is his first year in television. This is his first experience beyond being the interviewee as a driver, just hopping right in, doing the grid walk, interviewing strategists, interviewing drivers, team owners. I mean, really impressive stuff from my man Jack, right?
Yeah, I think Jack's done a good job making that transition, and I like Jack. I hope he's back in the car next year.
Yep.
While we were talking to Jack, Joey, by the way, Caitlin Clark announced that she will miss tonight's game for the Indiana Fever. So now it's her 7th missed game of the year. She's dealing with that left groin strain. No other update in terms of her long-term health and in terms of how soon she'll be back. Of course, the Fever have that WNBA Commissioner's Cup game on Tuesday. The championship game, that's in Minnesota. So if it's a severe groin strain, I was talking with Mark about this yesterday, at least a week, if not 2 maybe, but we don't know right now.
Well, I mean, and so she announced herself, like on her social media, or
Fever.
just the Fever announced it?
Fever
okay.
did.
Well, I mean, I guess you ride with what Bria was saying. I mean, All-Star break isn't even here yet. You don't want to get yourself in a situation where you're putting the cart in front of the horse again and bad things happen. And so, yes, it's unfortunate that she's missing this time. Yes, it's unfortunate that the Fever are scuffing a little bit here, but better now than later. So heal up, and man, I heard you guys talk about it yesterday. The strain talk, these injuries to our stars, man, it's got to stop.
I know. Do we need like in Major League? Do we need to sacrifice a chicken or something?
I'd be
or
willing.
Multiple chickens.
We were talking
Rhode
about
Island
that.
Red, maybe.
Oh, that's a good point.
We were talking
Good
about
call.
that. I was over at the Chatham Tap for Game 7, and we were kind of going around the horn talking about pregame, what we would sacrifice for the Pacers to win that game.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, none of our sacrifices were enough, obviously.
What were the conclusions?
Not
Anything
FCC
that you
friendly.
can. Okay, I didn't think so.
Yeah, but let's just say it was a lot from every individual that they would be willing. Maybe that was the fact, is that we didn't actually perform them.
Yeah.
It was just talk about it. All right, but Caitlin Clark out tonight in the back-to-back. Tuesday is the next time the Fever will play, correct?
Yes, after
So,
tonight. Yep,
kind of-
7:30 tonight.
Kind of weighing the 3-day rest. Do you rush it back or let it heal completely with the hopes that an all-star break into the second half works out okay?
Yeah, you have to remember too, back when she was dealing with the quad soreness that started in training camp and in the preseason, they shut her down for a little bit, and then she started and played the first 4 games of the year, first 5 games, I can't remember, and then she misses 3 weeks, a total of 5 games, and they were so cautious with her then, so that it wasn't a problem down the road. And then when she did come back last Saturday, that she was healthy, and now she's back on the injury report and dealing with another injury to her left leg. It's the same leg that she had the quad strain in. And it's very fascinating to think about, Joey, because this is like the first real time in her career where she had like an extended time off. And you have to wonder if all the muscle and all the strength that she had in the offseason, her body's not used to that, and it's just an adjustment period, and she's dealing with a couple of injuries so far.
Yeah, well, let's rest up. Got the 4th coming up. Got the All-Star break coming
You got any
up.
plans for the 4th?
Just the typical, boozing and chasing kids.
I'm glad it's on a Friday night.
Yeah.
This go around. I
Yeah.
think early talks so far between me, Olivia, and the family, I think we're going to go down to the Vic and watch the
It's a great
Indians and then hang out down there for fireworks.
Can't go wrong there. Can't go wrong, especially on a Friday night. You know what I have coming up this weekend, though?
Are you going to the Cubs game?
No.
Are you singing?
They're in Houston this weekend.
Yes.
That's a good one. They're in Houston this weekend. No.
Didn't know if they had you throwing out a first pitch again or not.
Not there yet. Did it at the Vic last year, which was awesome. But got a 40th birthday party
Oh,
for
really?
a neighbor, and it's 80s themed.
Oh, goodness.
So good thing that JMV is coming in here after. And I know once our Franciscan Good Heart
Good for the Heart Friday.
Good for
yeah?
the Heart Friday is done, maybe we can get JMV in here to give me some tips on what, because that's you got to dress up like it's 1985.
I was about to say, if Jake's not here, JMV is probably your next closest bet of giving fashion advice about the 80s.
I know Jake could do great, but when I think of 80s, I think of Back to the Future and JMV. Back to the Future, Rocky IV, and JMV. Those are my 3 things when I think of the 80s. So hopefully I get some tips from him.
I wonder if JMV's listening, he's going to remember that. If you think the 80s, he was probably in his early 10s. He was like 10, 12, 11 years old in that age range.
You really don't think that? You don't think about JMV with the 80s?
Oh, I think about JMV anytime, probably from the 70s onward, just because of his musical interest.
Yeah.
He probably knows anything and everything.
Well, he'll be in here, obviously, starting at 3, hopefully a little bit beforehand, and we can chat with him. That was Jack Harvey, a Fox IndyCar reporter. Obviously, you can hear the Mid-Ohio race, all of the IndyCar races coming up right here on these airwaves with the IndyCar Radio Network, airing with Mark Janes and the crew doing a great job as well. But shout out to Jack for coming on, spending some time with us on this Friday before he goes in third wheels for the F1 movie. All right, coming up next, we got the Franciscan Good for the Heart Friday, and then a little bit of JMV after. Don't go anywhere.
First and foremost, just about the importance of that heart scan. You know, the heart scan technology at Franciscan is the very best, and it literally, non-invasive, takes 10 minutes, and it gives you an idea of your heart health risk assessment and your candidacy, whether or not you are entering into or heart disease. I never thought I'd have heart disease at the age of 48. I do. And, you know, the screening is such an important step of giving you that peace of mind, or just simply finding out whether or not you need to start taking steps in helping out if you are having some sort of a coronary or artery issue with your heart. Oh, so important for Franciscan Health. Number one in the state of Indiana when it comes to heart health from a number of different organizations that have rated it as such. You can find out all the information about the heart scans at franciscanhealth.org, or you can always call at 833-238-0688. I don't expect you to remember 833-238-0688. So the easiest thing to do, franciscanhealth.org, to find out that information about heart scans. I just had somebody tell me last week, a member of the Pacer family, as a matter of fact, that said, Jake, I listen to my body, and if it weren't for knowing about the risks of heart health and everything else, it might have saved my life, because I ended up having a heart surgery that was facilitated by the fact that I was on top of and in front of my heart health. And those kinds of stories I love to hear. We bring each and every Friday a feel-good story from the world of sports, and I simply want to congratulate on this Friday Samaya Smith of Warren Central High School, who is a junior and a phenom for that matter, because she is the first African-American girls individual state champion in tennis in Indianapolis history, which is outstanding. Congratulations to her. And she did so in the state finals by dropping the first set 6-2, coming back and winning two sets at 6-1, 6-1 to claim the crown. What is impressive about that is that she just began playing tennis 7 years ago, comes from a family of track stars. Her sisters, her parents are both. Her mom is coaching track at Warren Central. Her dad has been involved in track, both of them elite runners. And she decided to focus full-time on tennis just a couple of years ago and really picked up a racket for the first time just 7 years ago. And now already, as just a junior, is the first black individual state tennis champion from the girls' standpoint in Indiana history, which is outstanding, and I think shows that clearly a prodigy within the sport itself, because to be able to get to that level just 7 years after picking up the sport and just 3 years after deciding to focus strictly on that sport and giving up her track career, for example, is oh so impressive. The individual dedication for that is to be commended. And she had said afterwards that while it is a great accomplishment to win the state, that she has an appreciation for the fact that she was able to be a historical figure in doing so and making history for Indianapolis. Crispus Attucks High School of Indianapolis was the first ever undefeated state champion, first ever state champion in any sport in the United States for an all-black school back when they won the state basketball tournament with Oscar Robertson. And now we have our first female state black tennis champion, which I think is awesome from an individual standpoint. Also, one other thing, I guess, for a feel-good, and I'm going to do it for myself, at least for this weekend. Obviously, I'm not here doing the show live this weekend. Most of you know it's because I'm on my road trip with my buddy Mike Byron to Providence. This began as a dedication to our friend Kevin Turhan-Donner, who was a tennis player, played tennis at North Central High School, along with Michael Hopkinson, who was a black state individual tennis champion at North Central back in the early 90s when we were there. Michael, I believe, actually won it in 1989. But nonetheless, Turhan was the smartest guy that I've ever met. And no matter what happens, will always be the smartest person I've ever met. He was in terms of just academics and intellect, a natural and a brilliant genius that never flaunted that. And there was no reason for Turhan, when we were in high school, to hang out with dimwits like myself and Byron and the rest of our group. But he did. He accepted a full academic ride to Vanderbilt, where he was the top of his class, then received a full benefit offer to be in the medical program at Indiana University. He did that. He became an oncologist in Austin, Texas, and he passed away. He was the first of my group of friends to do so a handful of years ago. And when he passed, he left his brand new car to his dad. His parents were very concerned about how to get the car back up to Indianapolis. So Byron and I flew down to Austin, Texas, to get his car and drive it back. And as a result, we have every year now done the Kevin Turhan Donner Memorial Road Trip, where we just have fun. We fly to a different city. We drive home. Right now, as you're listening to me, we are in Boston, and we are coming back from our trip to Providence. The reason I say all of it is because I hope for all of you that you have people in your life that were as significant, as heartfelt, as passionate, as kind, and as much fun to be around as Turhan was for all of us. And you have the same level of buddies like I do with Byron to be able to go through and make new memories while keeping in mind and keeping alive the memories of those that you loved in the past. I hope that for all of you. And if you have lost someone, most of us have, that you have your own ways to be able to carry their memory alive. So I am most grateful for everybody back in Indianapolis for allowing me to do that again this weekend. And we will try to get our way safely back for the return of the show on Monday. But again, when it comes to the heart scans, Franciscan Health, the number one place to do it, franciscanhealth.org. Congratulations again to Samaya Smith of Warren Central, the junior. You folks have a wonderful weekend, and hopefully, and this is my biggest hope of all, Eddie and Joey don't burn the place down before I get back on Monday. We'll talk to you at noon on Monday. Much appreciated. Eddie and Joey, other side here on The Fan.
Happy Friday to you. Final segment of today's show with Joey Mulinaro. I'm Eddie Garrison. Nathaniel Finch doing a great job as the producer of today's show. Our guests earlier today, you can find these on the Podcast Center. Wherever you download your podcast, or you can go to 1075thefan.com. Jeremiah Johnson joined us, talked a little bit about the Pacers draft, Pacers future as well, with the uncertainty of Tyrese Halliburton playing in the upcoming season. Zack Kefir touched on the Pacers run, talked a little Colts as well. Bria Goss previewed tonight's Fever game, where at the time when that conversation happened, Joey, we didn't know that Caitlin Clark would be out. Now that we do know that, and Jack Harvey was our final guest just about 45 minutes ago.
Yeah, it's been a fun show, man. It's been a heck of a day. I appreciate you guys having me in, Jake and the fan for letting me come substitute for a day. Talking indie sports on a Friday in the summer, man, doesn't get much better.
We talked a little bit about the addition of Cam Jones and Talon Peter at the start of the show. Just kind of revisit that. What were your overall thoughts on the Pacers going back to another experienced guard in the second round?
I think it just speaks to the culture and the established identity that the Pacers have now and moving forward. And you bring in a guy like that again, it's not flashy, it's not something that's going to be franchise changing, saving, hell, maybe it could be, but the fact of the matter for me is you brought in another guy who is pretty much identical in terms of his resume, his body type, and what he likes to do as another guy who you got in the second round by the name of Andrew Nimhard, and a guy, like you said, to Eddie, with Ben Shepherd, who's a 26th overall pick in the first round, but still just the mold and the identity and the culture that is this Pacers team, and I'm super excited about him.
Yeah, he's going to have an opportunity to contribute right away, certainly, because as we expect, Tyrese will not play this upcoming year as he recovers from that Achilles tear. So there's going to be some open minutes there for him. I'm interested to see how they want to play him, especially as a rookie. Like, you go back and look at him collegiately at Marquette. He was there for 4 years, 3-year starter, played with Tyler Kolek. So primarily off ball his junior year where he was at his best. He goes back for another year to conclude his senior year underneath Shaka Smart, and they have a different role for him where he's the primary ball handler and initiator, essentially the point guard for, the Golden Eagles. And it was something different, and I think it allowed him to grow into a different player. His defense, it will be interesting to watch, especially as a rookie, because as I said earlier, he's a guy that stands at 6'5" and a wingspan of 6'6". So is he going to be able to switch and guard the wings in a league that is now transitioning to more guard and wing and switching on picks? And I don't know how to look, but I'm sure as you look at things, he'll be implemented right away just because the Pacers are going to need him. We were talking about it earlier, Joey, that when you look at the second round, you're not looking for a guy to have instant impact in a certain regard in terms of being an explosive, flashy player to put up a ton of points. You're probably looking for a guy that has a specific role, and then you put him in the league and have him flourish in that role.
Yeah, and I think when you have somebody who has played with the experience, the longevity that he did at the level that he did in college, then coming off of the bench for an 8-minute stint, a 10-minute stint, doing those things that you mentioned, that's why you go to a guy like that. And you know what? Just play your ass off, man. That's part of the culture and the identity
right.
of this team. Come in there, hawk down ball handlers, and just play hard. And I think that Cam Jones is a guy that's going to be able to do that.
Yeah, because you cannot play for Shaka Smart and not play hard, and you can't play defense.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. And
Same
now Rick
goes
Carlisle,
for the Pacers.
Rick Carlisle. And you had an interesting point. Matt Painter at Purdue, they have a specific type of player, a specific type of mindset, and a specific type of skill set they're always looking for in their guys when they're making recruitment pitches to a lot of these players in the state of Indiana, and it has worked out really, really well for them. And I go back to, he was in attendance at one of the games, and it just kind of it didn't really strike anything with me. And then you wonder, Rick Carlisle has gone on the Fan Morning Show before and has spoke very highly about Matt Painter and the job that he's done at Purdue. And it makes me wonder if those two have conversations on frequently about building culture, because you can see some parallels between how these two teams have built what they've got.
Yeah, and I think that's just what got me so fired up is when I saw that tweet with the scouting report, Kevin Clark, that he finished with, "Sounds like a Pacer to me."
Yeah.
That got me fired up. because people know when they think now of the Indiana Pacers now moving forward, they think of guys who are just coming after you all day long, playing with intensity, playing with fire, playing hard, hitting like that is really something to be excited about, to have that kind of established identity and culture.
Which of these, I guess, the crazy games, crazy finishes, will you remember the most in like 10 to 15 years?
The Game 1, Madison Square Garden, will always be the first one that I go back to. It'll always be the first one that I go back to because of the stage that it was on, because of I'm a 90s kid and I still live with Indiana and you're big New York and we're the little guys and we have a chip on our shoulder and we're going to come into your house and we're going to take you down.
Mm-hmm.
Just like I said to Stiller, we are going to take you down. We'll take you down in that.
You got a reply from Stiller too, didn't you?
I did. Yeah. He thought that the Hal L, when I put Halliburton's face on Hal L from Happy Gilmore, he got a kick out of that, which was nice. He didn't reply the rest of the series though, but I was, similarly to Andrew Nimhart on Jalen Brunson, I was on Stiller's ass and I wasn't letting up. But Game 1 in Madison Square Garden will be the one that I go back to always. But then also ending that series the way that they did at home, Tyrese taking over in the second half, Nimhard making it to where Brunson wants to headbutt him because he's so in his face.
Yeah.
Welcome to Nim Hell. And then that alley-oop to Obi Toppin, that was the exclamation point. Those will be the two.
The infamous checkmate call from Mark Boyle.
Yep. See, you added just like you did all those years ago with what we grew up on. Ding dong, the witch is dead.
Yeah.
Now my son is going to be able to know checkmate.
Checkmate, and how many more times? And
can this team do that?
Yes.
That did not happen.
Yeah.
That's not a Boyle impression. That's
No.
just I'm just saying what he said. All right, man. It's been a blast. I need to know what do you think? Like I said, I got this 80s themed party I'm going to. Do you have any recommendations? You or Nathaniel? What's the fit that I got to go with? I know that you're both the Gen Zers, but that's all kind of coming back and around. Do you have any thoughts?
Is that like neon and that was like that type of stuff?
I think that's like commercial 80s. I think that's what you think of when you go to like a Party City.
Right.
Or something like that. But I don't think that's the real raw 80s.
Like the highlighter pink and all
yellows.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's like, when you're going to Party City, you don't have an idea for Halloween. You're like, oh, let's be an 80s couple. And you just get the highlighter workout suit like Ken and Barbie.
Is it an indoor party or an outdoor party? I hope it's indoor.
I think it's a little bit of both. It's outdoor with a rooftop. So I got, I can work with both ways. I can layer it if I want to be inside, or I think you're going outside on a little bit of a rooftop. You can take it off. It might be a little warm.
Button-ups? Were button-ups starting to come in the 80s?
I think pretty much every generation had a little button-up action. But
James, where's JMV? We need JMV. We need this up.
I think what I'm going with right now, and feel free to tweet at me, Joey Mulinaro on Twitter or Instagram. You can find me at any of those handles, on any of those pages. But I think right now I'm going with a little pegged jeans. Apparently that was a big thing in the 80s, my dad tells me. Kind of have the jeans rolled up a little bit, some high-top sneakers, and I'm going with maybe like a hockey jersey.
You have a particular player?
Indianapolis Ice, brother.
There you go.
How about that?
We've had, I can't remember his name now. I just talked to Jake about him last week. Christian McKenzie, I think is his name, played here. He called into the show randomly at one point, and we talked hockey after the Four Nations face-off.
Anything come of that can help me in this situation?
No, I didn't know I didn't know if you had a particular player in mind or not. You said the Indianapolis side, so I didn't know if there was a player.
I think it's a custom one. I think it has me. All right, wrapping up here. Rest Caitlin Clark or try to get her back out there?
You got to rest her. Like with Caitlin Clark being essentially the entire Fever franchise right now, and she being, of course, the offense that you build your team around, you need to rest her.
Okay.
Oh, here he is.
JMV,
the man, the myth, the legend, and the boot.
All right. Thank you so much, everybody out there. Appreciate you letting me come and substitute for the day. JMV, real quick. I got an 80s themed party that I'm going to for a 40th birthday party.
Today?
80s themed tomorrow night. Got a fit for me that I can go pick out before then.
Well, you want to try to go deep on this? You want to go?
Well, we got about 9 seconds, so I
9
guess not.
seconds? How about something for Footloose?
Footloose
something
it
Kevin
is.
Bacon, Footloose? Yeah.
Cool. That's JMV. He's coming up next. Thanks for being with us on The Fan.